Good morning, everybody, and welcome to Pwnery's Week in Review, episode 32. And I think this is the first one of 2022 that's live. Admittedly, we did one that was pre-record because the first gun show of the year was last Saturday. And if you all know anything about gun shows, you got to get there early because all the good stuff gets snatched up either by other sellers or like people in the first 10 minutes. It's kind of strange. At least in my area it is. I guess we could talk about a little bit of gun show mentality, like for people that are in the market and for those who are trying to sell. Because admittedly, I tried to sell last week and it didn't go so well, strangely enough. Anyway, as you can see, I've got one panelist today because apparently either Tony's wife has the Rona or she thinks she has the Rona. And either way, that sucks. So he's usually here, but he's either busy with Rona or Doggo, or he's working on a new property too. And if you hear really strange background noises today, let me get you slightly up to speed. We had puppies. We had puppies on January 3rd. But before we get into that, let me introduce my panelist, Scott. Good morning.
Morning.
And we do have 5 stories for you today. I realized that just at the end of the year, I was trying to stuff extra stories into the show. And it was out of paranoia, to be honest, because what ended up happening was every time I get ready to prep the show, first of all, I run late, as you probably noticed. But the other thing is I always have this anxiety of, do I have enough material to cover 2 hours? And what ends up happening is it always goes to 2 hours anyway, or slightly over. Or in one case, I think it went a full hour over, which unintended. But, I mean, everything was going well, so, if people were watching, we were running, so it's cool. But yeah, this week, I've kept it down to 5, and I've still got that feeling of, oh my god, I don't know if I have enough material. But, it's fine. If we don't make 2 hours, we don't make 2 hours. It's not a big deal. Yesterday, when I got off of work and stopped at the car wash, it was 77 outside. And now it's half that? Yeah, it's about half that. But what's really funny is I woke up to the sound of a text message from my friend in Kodiak, Alaska. And usually whatever he tells me is surprising or shocking. But today the text message was, you do realize there's only a 12-degree disparity between where I am and where you are. And I thought, well, that's kind of odd. So I looked it up, and sure enough, I think right now it's 45 here, and over there it's like 32, 33. So it's not, for being over 8,000 miles northwest of me, that's not bad. Unfortunately, if you're 1,500 miles northeast of me where Scott is, there is no temperature. It's devoid. It's like, what temperature it is outside? There isn't any. It's like 0 or less. So, sorry. Anyway, so, okay, let's get you caught up because I don't think I covered it in the pre-record too well. But we had puppies January 3rd. Did not expect it because I couldn't remember when I thought my dog had conceived. And I didn't think that it took because they got stuck together for less than 90 seconds. I ran out and grabbed them both, put them in a bathtub of cold water, shot it right on his hootis, and he started yelping and screaming like I was ripping him limb from limb, and then he popped out. And I gave him like the Samuel L. Jackson Black Snake Moan death stare. And he was traumatized. He would not come near me for about 2 weeks. He just kept looking at me like, are you going to kill me? So I thought it didn't take. And then I guess about 4 or 5 weeks in, that dog went from the female. She went from 4 pounds to 8 pounds in no time flat. I'm like, whoa, 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 what the hell, right? But I was trying to like do a little bit of reading just to see if maybe she was going through what's called a false pregnancy, which apparently is common in dogs, especially if you have a breeding pair. So I thought, well, she was in a heat cycle. Maybe her body was just naturally going through the motions because she was sort of looking like she was lactating and she was putting on a little bit of extra combat weight. And that didn't happen. No, no. Sunday, the 2nd, I'm sitting there, and usually about 3 feet to my right on my bed, she'll lay there and kind of like put her head between her front paws and just kind of look up at me like, "Are you coming to bed?" And she did that, and I thought, okay, everything's normal. But the one weird thing was, is as soon as I made eye contact with her, she took one of her back legs and kicked it out 90 degrees from her body. And I thought, well, that's kind of weird. Like, just 90 degrees. And I'm like, huh. So I looked at her, I'm like, what are you doing? And I grabbed her back foot and I kind of tucked it back under her abdomen. And then she looked at me and she kicked it out again. And I was like, why are you doing that? So I pushed it back in and I rolled her body weight over on that foot. She kicked out the other foot exactly the same way. And I thought, I don't know what's going on. So I rolled her over. I was just giving her like a visual once over, right? Because I figured if she was going into labor, um, things would start to swell in places, dilation or whatever. And no. So I thought maybe she's just being weird, right? She wants attention. So rubbed her belly. She fell asleep. I finished, like, I think editing a video or something. And she started delivering puppies 2 hours later. I was asleep. In like 2 in the morning, I hear feverish licking noises because she usually sleeps like a foot or two to the right of me up against the wall. Got like this little dog bed that looks like a pineapple, and she was outside of that. And I just kept hearing this licking noise, and I thought, no, I gave her a bath. She doesn't have fleas. And then I heard this whimpering, and I thought, oh, shit. So I reach up and I turn on the light, and she is just licking away. And I look down, and there's 2 puppies already. And I'm like, oh, where'd the first one come from? So instantly, 2 in the morning, I went to bed at almost 1. And I roll out of bed, and, I was prepared for this. So I have a whelping box, and all I had to do was unpack what was inside it. Sheeting, dog bed, blankets, things like that. So by like 5 after 2, the box was good to go. And I had to like scoop up her. She was very sticky, obviously. And 2 puppies. I had to scoop my hand underneath her hindquarters and the 2 puppies in my fingertips. And then with the other hand, sort of counterbalance her front end and then drop her into the whelping box. And as soon as I did that, she settled in. Then I flipped on this little rheostat sodium light. And sort of like low light plus a little bit of heat. And then I take this long, like, I use a towel, but I kind of hang it like combat webbing to drape over the box to keep a lot of the moving air out. Because puppies can't regulate their body temperature. So she was fine. And I'm like, well, this is going to be a long night. So I make a post on Facebook at like 2:30. And I know, like, Jaime, because he's out in California, he's not in bed yet. So he responds almost immediately. But I try to get some sleep because, I got a work week coming up. I already got to bed late anyway. And I woke up again at about 3:30. Look over. Now there's 3 puppies. I'm just making sure she's okay. She's going through all the motions. She's got light. She's got a bowl of water. She's got all the blankets. Everything's cool. And I'm like, you got this, right? And she just kind of looks up at me like, I got this. So I said, all right, I'm going to try to go back to sleep now. I just, give the puppies a once over, make sure everything's fine. She did nip the cords and everything, so everything's cool. 4:30 rolls around. I hear more noise. I look down. There's a 4th puppy. And I thought, okay, well, she usually stops at 4, so, give them a once over. And I'm like, you got this, right? She gives me this, I got this. I'm like, okay. So I completely cover the top of the box. I'm like, I'll see you in the morning. Couldn't fall asleep till 6 because of whimpering and licking noises and nipping of the cords and all that crap. And finally fell asleep. Then the alarm went off. Then I had to go to work. Ugh. Long, long morning, long day. Sucked. Made it through the work week. This is sort of bled into Personals Week in Review. Wonder why the chat's not working down there. Let me see if I got this working. I gotta make sure it works. Like, did I get this working? Hopefully. Maybe. Sorry, I gotta check this real quick. Oh, I made a boo-boo. Hang on.
You screwed up?
Slightly. I'm fixing it in real time. There you go. Sorry about that. Okay, chat's working. So I made it through the week, and there was a gun show. And I, had like 12 hours notice. And I'm like, yeah, I'll go. So I did a pre-record Friday night. And it was short because it was just me. Got to the show. Actually, no, went to George's house. And he was like, do you want me to drive? Because he just bought that 4Runner. And I'm like, fuck yeah, I want you to drive. I want to see what this thing is like that you spend almost 60 grand on. So I get in. The first thing I realize is it's a lot taller than I thought. I've built some pretty big vehicles. Morning, John, and DJ Play Nice. Morning to both of you. I usually build these things without steps. Because what I do is I open the door and I just kind of hop my way in, right? With my M715, I was running 40-inch tires. So what I would do is I would open the door and I could kick my foot on one of the lugs of the tire to get in. Well, George's 4Runner, it has the equivalent of like 32.5-inch tires. They're not really that big. But the suspension's set up in such a way where the body's actually quite a bit off the ground. And it's got really good ground clearance for only 32-inch tires. So I thought, well, that's a really good design. And it has a step. And like, your first inclination when you see a step is I want to step on that. I didn't want to do that. I opened the door and I was like, no, I'm just going to step into the floorboard. And I had to lift my leg quite a bit higher than I thought. But it was pretty tall. And then I noticed like the seats were a little stiff. Like, for some reason, new car seats, like probably within the last 6 years or so, 6 or 7 years, really hard foam seats. Like, they were designed by, I don't know, a really bitter lesbian East German librarian that just has it out for everybody. But seats were a little stiff, but the ride was incredible. Like, that thing was squishy, I mean, I've been driving cars with stiff or low profile tires probably for the last 10 years or so. So I kind of lost the sensation of what it's like to drive something lifted on big tires with wide aspect ratios, wide sidewalls. So it took me a while to kind of get used to it. And I was like, man, this thing feels a little bit like a bouncy castle. And then I noticed how cathedral quiet it was. Like, he didn't have the radio on. He doesn't use the radio very much. But, we were just shooting the shit the whole drive up there. It was like an hour and a half drive. So, like, he and I are just shooting the shit while we're driving. But I noticed that, like, in between conversation, those things are super quiet. Like, the sound insulation is incredible. And it's just, like, even the wipers don't make a sound. It's the weirdest sensation. And then I look down at his radio, and it's got the info panel up, and it says that he's averaging, like, 15 miles to the gallon. And I'm just looking at him, I'm like, welcome to my world. He's like, huh? And I'm like, you're in my world now. Because he had a Nissan Altima before, and it's 4-cylinder with the CVT gearbox. And thankfully he took my advice and he got out of it before it hit 80,000 miles. Because those things are like ticking time bombs. So he's got that. That was getting like almost 30. The car before that he had a Dodge Stratus 4-cylinder, and that thing was getting like 26. And then before that, he had, I think it was an Oldsmobile Alero, and that thing probably got about at least 20. So he has this Toyota, and it's got like, I think almost a 22 or 23 gallon tank. It's pretty good size. And he can take, 87. He doesn't have to use premium. But it's getting 15 to a gallon. I'm just like, you're in my world. And I explained to him, I'm like, my T-Bird, it weighs 4,400 pounds. Even though it's not a very big car, it's a very heavy car. And it's got a small V8. And it's only got a 5-speed automatic. And I'm lucky if I'm getting 15 miles to a gallon. Because, I drive it like it should be. Not like a grandma owns it. I mean, I don't chuck it into corners all day long, but you get the idea. So I'm like, what did it feel like the first time you had to go and fill that tank? And he sort of got kind of excited. He goes, it's kind of nice, actually. What are you talking about? And he says, well, the Altima required mid-grade fuel. And I thought that was strange. But then I realized it was a higher compression engine. It wasn't turbo, but it was high enough to require 89. And I thought, huh. And he was like, my Alero required super. I thought that was really weird. But it was like a North Star with 2 cylinders cut off, so I thought, maybe not weird. He goes, this is the first vehicle I've had in a while where I can run the regular stuff. And he goes, in all honesty, my fill-up costs are pretty close to the same. And I said, well, that's great and all, but you have to go back to the pump every 4 days compared to before. And he says, nah, I get about 8. And I looked at him like, how's that possible? And he goes, I only go to work and home. I don't go anywhere. So the trip for us to the gun show, which was in Pasadena, which is the next town over, basically, that was the longest trip he had ever taken in that thing since he bought it. And he's had it for 2 months-ish, something like that. And because it's his first 0-mile brand new car, he's like me when I was 17, He bought the car and now he's tuning it by eBay. Not really. He's outfitting it. So it took him 2 months, and he finally bought a bumper for it that's got a winch mount and light mounts. And he's starting to realize that he has entered a very expensive game. Very expensive game. Something that I've been familiar with since I was about 17. I got out of off-roading around 25. So I did it for about 7 years. 8 years? Yeah, about 8 years. And, I'd built about 3 J trucks. These are Jeeps. The J Series full-size truck. I'd built 2 Cherokee wide tracks from like the 70s and early 80s. I'd built a Cherokee narrow track. I built 2 Wagoneer Limiteds, 1 Grand Wagoneer. These are all full-size Jeeps. And then 3 Kaiser M715 military trucks from the 60s in 8 years. And I just kept telling him, I'm like, this is an expensive game you're getting into. And now he's starting to realize it, because this little bumper for the 5th gen 4Runners, it only covers the middle third of the bumper that you see on the truck already. Like, you replace the chin part of it, essentially. You can get a full-size bumper, but he didn't want to do that because it requires cutting the fender wells and parts of the body underneath the plastic bumper cover. And he was like, I don't want to cut it, I just bought it. And I'm like, yeah, you're not ready for this game yet. But he bought the chin one. It was $1,200 because it's a Toyota, and they don't make them as often as they make the ones for Jeeps, apparently, that he could have got for like $700. And then he thought, okay, I got the bumper, I'm done. And I'm like, oh no, my sweet summer child. I said, you still have to buy the lights that go in it. And you have to buy the winch that goes in it. And he was like, oh. So he prices out the lights and the winch, and that's another, I think, $1,800. He's like, Jesus Christ, I got $3,000 in a bumper. And I'm like, you're not done. He said, what do you mean? I'm like, well, you got to feed that winch. You're going to need some really thick, like 0-gauge battery cables. And then you're going to need a regulator. And then you're going to need a power distribution block. And I was like, then you're probably going to want to run a second battery. And you're probably going to run a Mechman alternator to keep up with the load. And he was like, what? And I'm like, you don't think that winch draws a lot of power when it's trying to pull you out of something? I'm like, you really didn't research this, did you? So, MechMan alternator, about 400 bucks. 305 amp though. And then I'm thinking we're going to set him up with 2 marine batteries on an isolator. So that way he doesn't have to use those batteries until the engine stalls. Because it will eventually stall. He'll get stuck to the point where he shuts it off. Especially if he's stuck in watery mud and he's worried about it getting down the engine. So he'll shut the engine off. So we'll probably set up 2 marine batteries somewhere. Probably in a box in the back or something. And then put that on an isolator with like a battery cutoff switch. That way he can run the winch with it off, the engine off. Now the only problem that he's running into is the bumper he has doesn't have a front receiver mount, so the winch he's buying goes behind the bumper, which is fine. That means you have a front winch. But if you have one in the back, you're kind of screwed if you need to get pulled from the rear. So originally what I told him is buy a receiver mount winch so you can hook it up in the front or the back. You can move it where you need it. He didn't listen. So his only chance to get out is going to be through the front. I lost Scott somehow. Internet, blizzard, whatever. It's like 0 degrees where he is. So there's that. We went to the show, and after walking in and checking in, I brought my Springfield 1903A3 rifle to sell, which originally I had no intention to sell it, but it was either that or my Shockwave. I built up the Shockwave. I'm sure you guys have seen it. It's the Mossberg video on my channel, and I'm not really attached to it, so I thought I'd flip it. And then I thought, no, it's probably going to be hard to sell, so I didn't bring that. And then I've got this 16-inch AR carbine that I built, one of my first builds, and I'm not really attached to that one either. I've built so many after that are better that I was like, I could let this go. But I didn't want to bring that one either. So I brought the Springfield because it's a sporter. You know, when I got it, it was just a receiver and a bolt. And oh, you moved out of New York finally. Huh. Anyway, so I built it as a sporter because that's all I had was a receiver and a bolt. So I bought a Criterion barrel, stock, all the small parts, trigger guard, all that, and built it up. And it turned out real nice. It's episode 2 on this old get, I think, if you want to go look at that. But I put a price tag on it of $800 because it's still a 1903 in a way, and it turned out really nice. And I've got quite a bit of money into it. Like I bought a Bausch & Lomb 3-power fixed fine line crosshair scope because it's kind of period correct for a 50 sporter. Well, you're hardly ever around, John, so how the hell do I know? Anyway, and then bipod and things like that, so I figured I could probably flip that pretty quick. Plus, the show I was going to is known to have quite a number of fuddish people, so I figured it'd be easy to sell, especially since, sorry, brain fart. Oh, because deer season was in. So I figured, you know what? Somebody might just pick it up as a deer rifle. And, you know, you check in. They open the bolt. The officer that was working that day, he was like, do you want to leave the bolt open or closed? And I looked at him because they zip tie it. And I thought, well, I'm going to try to sell it. And he goes, okay, I'll leave it open so people can look down the bore. And I thought, oh, he's pretty smart. Okay, thanks. So I got this thing on my shoulder. And I'm walking around the show. And the first guy that's at the booth, his name is Dan. I buy a lot of guns from him. He's always got the first booth when you walk in. He pays a premium for it. And his wife runs over and she's like, oh, what do you got there? So I tell her, I'm like, oh, I got a 1903 A3. And, you know, I serial checked the receiver. It's a 1943 production 1903 A3 Remington. And she was like, oh, I really like that. And I said, well, it's for sale. And she goes, what do you want for it? And I said, 800, but I'm open to suggestion. I'm not stuck on that price. I put it out there as a feeler, and she says, "Okay." She goes, "Well, walk around the show a bit. I'll talk to my husband." And she was like, "See if anyone else takes you up on it." She's like, "If not, come back and see me before you leave." So I thought, sweet. Okay, I've got a definitely maybe right there. I walk around the show for about an hour and a half with George. I uh, I managed to see three Keltec P50s, and I really wanted to touch it. But I saw that video that Yankee made about how flimsy the charging handles are, and I thought, no. Especially since they were asking 1200 plus for them. No thanks. I really wanted a P50. Really. I can't get over the stigma of that flimsy charging handle, or the exposed screws, or the reputation that Caltech has for things that don't survive. So I admire the fact that they take the risk of coming out with something new, but at the same time, make it better, please. Like, make it something I want to buy. Now, the only gun that they make so far that I really like, there's two actually. One is the PMR 30, which I think Smeggy bought one from G-Webs. And the other one is the RDB, I think it's called. And the funny thing is it's the California compliant version of the RDB that I really like. I know that sounds strange, but the reason I like that one is because the way that the stock and the comb is set up on the RDBC, you can hold it like a traditional bolt action rifle. Your thumb goes up and around, and it's very comfortable. So it's not as awkward as it looks to shoot. It's actually very, very comfortable to shoot. So yeah, if you like the RDB, maybe consider the California one. Honestly, strangely enough, it's very comfortable to shoot. But that's the only other one I like. And then when the P50 was announced, I thought, oh baby, think of the brace possibilities that has two QD mounts on it. Because on the P50, it's got a QD on the back, just below the charging handle, and it's got a second QD on the pistol grip. So you can triangulate your brace. It would have like this hole, like a thumb hole stock almost. And I thought that'd be fantastic. And I remember the guy who designed the P50, he said that they had a brace design ready to go, but they weren't making it. They'll sell the design to somebody else who wants to make it, which makes me think that he's already been harassed by the alphabets, AFTs. So, good morning to Gunmetal Guy. I hope you got my reply about the movie thing the other day, but that's how I do it. And some days, like before in the past, last year, I would take requests on what people want to do a watch party with. So I'm still open to that. If you're on the server or whatever, uh, you can put in a request, and if I have it, I can do that. We can do a watch party. Um, Also, I guess I should say that if you are wanting to join the show or my server, we do host lobbies every weekday, like Monday through Friday, every day. And I think what I'm going to do, I was going to do this before the show started, but it's already too late because I've already made the description and everything. So next week, I guess like an announcement type thing, I'm going to open the server to the public. So if you want to join, and uh, there'll be an invite link in the description next week, and I'll make the code good for 50 people, and we'll just see how many take, because I'm honestly 50 people aren't going to jump in at once. But I'll do an open invite code for 50 people onto the server next week. So it'll be open to the public, and maybe we can get some familiar faces or some fresh new ones. But like I said, if you want to join the show or the panel or the server, the email address in the link below in the description is valid. Like, I made that address, so it's not a joke. You can email me at that address, and I'll send you an invite link. The only thing that you're going to need is Discord, either on your phone or on your computer. Small program. I'm actually part of the beta testing team there, so a lot of the features that you do see on this show or on my server are the direct result of my suggestions and work to make Discord more functional like Google Hangouts used to be. So anyway, I walked around that show for 3 hours. I had probably 24 looky-loos. Selling a gun is like selling puppies or selling a car on Craigslist or Marketplace. It's super annoying because everybody wants what you have, but nobody wants to put up the money for it. And that's irritating because it's like, why the hell are you even here if you're not going to spend any money? Like, fuck off. The strangest guy I met at that show, he's an old timer, and he says, "Is that a Springfield?" "Yep." And he's like, "What caliber?" I looked at him, I'm like, 30-06. And he goes, "Oh, that's a little too much for me." And then a friend of his came by, and he goes, "What caliber is that in?" And he didn't know it was a Springfield. I'm like, 30-06. And he says, "Oh, damn. I wish that was 25-06. And I almost fell over. I'm like, wait a minute. I brought a rifle in a common-ish caliber that is functional and historical and reasonably priced compared to most 1903s. And now people are asking me for the oddball caliber version of a bolt-action rifle. I'm like, did I just enter the Twilight Zone? So anyway, I went back to Dan and his wife, and I stood there, and I was like, "So, do you want to make me an offer?" And she said, "I shouldn't have sent you out." I'm like, "What do you mean?" She says, "My husband had bought 4 rifles since you left and came back here, and our buy budget is gone." I'm like, "Are you kidding me? Seriously?" So, they ran out of money. They couldn't buy another rifle. And he had 4 of them like behind he was standing in front of the 4 that he just bought. So I brought it back home. Didn't sell it. Kind of annoyed. But the one thing I noticed at gun shows in the beginning, like the early hours, is there's a group of people. So I studied sociology and psychology growing up. So I'm very observant of people and behavior and mannerisms. And at the gun show, there's certain groups that you just can't not see. Oh, Tony's finally here.
Sorry.
It's okay. There's one group of people when you're standing in line trying to get in. And they talk just loud enough, deliberately, to make it sound like they know everything. And they're trying to show off. There's always that guy. He always brings a friend, and he always speaks slightly louder, loud enough so people around can hear. And the lemming folk in the line will kind of lean over like, "Oh, this guy knows something." And then the more seasoned gun owner kind of just rolls their eyes and looks away like, "Oh God, we've got a know-it-all." Or at least somebody who thinks they know it all. Yeah. So there's that. There's another group of people, which I've seen less and less frequently, who wear a backpack with a price list down the back, and they're what I call ammo and reloading supply scalpers. And they usually have like, Morning Clover, and he's got 1,000 primers, 350, stuff like that. And it's just the guy that you look over and go, "Man, I want to just like sneak him into a dark corner of the gun show and just shank him, you know?" But there's those. And then there's the ones I call the 0-minute buyer. Those are the scary ones because they're very reserved, they're very quiet, they don't look like they're carrying anything. Although one time, I saw a guy with 6 empty slings on his shoulder. I thought, that's kind of strange. He had intended to buy 6 things and sling them before he could walk out. I thought, wow, that's prepared, right? But those guys are the ones that are in the front of the line, gates open, and they're doing like the 4-minute mile. Up and down, just and they just start buying stuff instantly before the majority of people even bought their ticket to get in. they've already picked all the good stuff. But what they don't realize
Early.
is, yeah, but what they don't realize is, and I got privileged to this opportunity once. I came into a gun show probably back in November, and I had offered to help uh, Dan actually set up his booth. So I came an hour early, and what I had noticed is some of the resellers were walking up and down each other's aisles, buying each other's inventory an hour before the show started. And I thought, that's where the real deal is, isn't it? Because like I watched this guy, he walked halfway across the floor, stopped at this guy's booth, flip out like a stack of cash, just thumbed out a couple $100, handed it to the guy, and then grabbed the rifle he bought, took it back to his booth, and stuck a sticker on it. I'm like, what? So that happens. Then you got the guy who, bless their soul, you got the guy who knows he has limited mobility. Let's say pre Operation Rick, just as an example, right? And this guy has to use the scooter in a show where the aisles are only 7 feet wide and they're lined with people on either side. So the practical use of the aisle is 16 inches wide. And this guy has to drive his cart right through every aisle. And he's got a chip on his shoulder like it's your fault. Ugh. There's that. There's the group of people who bring their girlfriends who know nothing about guns. They're not there to buy anything, but they are there to take up space and get in your way or waste time because he's going to walk up and down each table and try to impress his girlfriend with knowledge of things he knows nothing of. Like, one guy tried to explain why it's called 45 Long Colt to his girlfriend, and I know Tony's left eye just twitched. But he tried to explain that. And I just kind of looked over, and it wasn't. Okay, so the common story that you're told is it's called 45 Long Colt only after the advent of 45 automatic Colt pistol, 45 AARP. But that's not the truth, is it? Maybe there's some truth in the myth of that, but he was trying to explain to her it was called Long Colt just because of the case length. And I'm sitting there going, that's not right. But I'm looking at his girl, and she's got like stars in her eyes because she's fascinated with how much he knows. And I'm just like, this dude's going to get laid lying about everything at this show. What a prick. Anyway, enough of that.
That's your typical guy.
Yeah, I know. And exactly, Clover's like she cared one bit about 45 Colt. You know what? You're right. Now that I think about it, that's a 50-50 proposition, isn't it? Some of the girls will look like they're very impressed. Some of them will look like they're bored to death and they can't wait to go to lunch because that's what you promised her for in the first place. Hey, I gotta go do this gun show, but I promise I'll take you out to lunch after, right? There is that. There is that.
You've got your girl that would be twitching because she just wants to go home, clean her peacemaker too.
That's a rarity. It's not like gun show. My gun shows don't have Alex Zadra walking around in them. Oh, that reminds me. Classics giving away a Barrett M82 A1. It's the contest of this week. Go get it. Because I know I'm not going to win it. But go get it anyway. Maybe one of you guys will win it. So anyway. So you caught the Rona, huh?
No. Call whatever the old lady's toting around that ain't Rona.
Okay. So she did get tested. It came up negative?
Yes.
All right, that's good.
Every fucking buddy she works with came up positive, but she didn't.
Flu Rona. That's the new thing. There's that, and I wonder what Rick was down with, because he didn't do his show Wednesday. Anyway. They still aren't talking about it in the news. And it's not one of my 5 stories. But about a week ago, there was a new variant. A new variant. And it had mutated like 61 times or something. It's called the IHU strain. IHU. Which I think, Tony, you jokingly said, does that mean I hate you? Came out of France. Um, but nobody's talking about it yet. And I think the reason in our country nobody talks about it is because the way that the media is set up these days, they go from crisis to crisis, but they won't move on to the next one until they have absolutely played out the previous one. And right now, everything is still Omicron and flu Rona. So, Ehu coming to a news broadcast near you. Says no show today either. That's crappy. I have a small gripe about that, John, but I'll reserve it for another time. I think I saw in the chat earlier, you guys were asking if anyone's going to the Tulsa Arms Show, Wanamaker, in April. That is the plan for me. It's been too long since I went. I think the last time I went was 2017 or 18. So I would like to, and that's what I'm planning to do. I know.
You'll later discussing it.
Really?
Yep.
Awesome. Clover says that the Ehu strain, France? So it's a virus that gives up the second your body starts to fight it? Now, what it is once it's announced and its intentions are known, and now that the country of origin has been named, the Royal Navy will attack it and sink it before the Germans can get a hold of it. That's what that is. At least the employer told the employees when the office gets COVID. I gotta find out after I show up for work. Oh. So, shit, I forgot
I
what I was
wish
talking
Clover hadn't have said that when I had a mouthful of coffee. God, about to choke.
Oh, yeah. So, okay, so yeah, if you guys are talking about it, you and the wife, then yeah, I'll definitely start moving puzzle pieces around to try to get that to happen then. Make it a reality.
Don't count on it because it's all dependent on this cabin thing. We're not getting anywhere at this point because of the weather. So.
Oh, that's right, because your delivery day was like sometime now, isn't it?
Yeah.
Are they're just delayed though?
Yeah, it's been rainy and shit down there, and they're not going to be out in the mud.
Yeah. So if I go, I've got some strange choices to make. One of them is, do I take Roxanne with me?
Yes.
I think she'd have a good time. But I kind of want George to go. Because 2 reasons.
George has got his own damn car. He can drive up there.
No, see, that's the thing. If he's got his Toyota 4Runner, then I'll just ride with him.
There's
I'll split
a back seat, ain't there?
I'll split the fuel costs with him. But the 4Runner would definitely make a better road trip vehicle than my Thunderbird. Because, yes, the car is a very comfortable place to sit. Yes, it drives very well on the highway. No, it has absolutely no space for the kind of toys I'm planning on buying. Because, if I remember right, when I got my Dutch Beaumont Vitale, oh no, that was delivered straight to the house. Never mind. When I bought, no, that was delivered straight to the house too.
Just take the 300.
Well, no, oh, that's not a bad idea.
Wow.
Yeah, because the back seat folds down. Well, no, the reason is because I had bought a gun. It might have been the PU Sniper. It was so long that the only way I could get it in the car was I had to drop the top so it could stick up.
Yeah, it sounds like a sniper.
Yeah, because it came in a really long box. The Swedish Mauser barely fit. I had to unscrew the muzzle device, and then it fit. Yes, John, that's exactly right.
Everybody should get a chance to see Wanamaker at least one.
Yeah, it's, well, if you, okay, If you're from a small to medium-sized town, then the Wanamaker Arms Show is probably the biggest gun show you'll ever see in your life. I'm
Well,
in the
it's the
fourth
biggest in
largest
the
city in
world.
the country, and it doesn't happen often, but one of the major gun shows that do pass through my area every once in a while is either at the George R. Brown Convention Center or it used to be called the Astro Arena, which was a big exhibition hall next to the stadium. And when they do the show at either one of those, it's about 2/3 the size of the Wanamaker Gun Show. So for me, it's not as big as a lot of people are saying it is, but it is huge. It is absolutely huge. I managed to see almost everything I wanted to see on my day trip show that I went to. But then I realized I only did the top floor. I didn't do the bottom, like on the north end where there's that part that steps down. I didn't go down there. And a lot of people said that that's where a lot of like the hand loading and reloading and like rare ammo is. So I kind of regret not going down there. But yeah, I'm definitely gonna plan to go because I really liked the drive. Strangely enough, I mean I drove my Fiat up there. It beat me to death to make that trip in that car because it was what, that was a 22-hour day for me, and 12 of it was driving, at least. I think I only got to spend 4.5 hours at the show, but I just remember the drive from Houston to Dallas was, it was okay. I did it like, I left my house at 2 in the morning. Something from Houston to Dallas, it was all dark, but I was on Google Hangouts at the time. So at least I had somebody to talk to. If I do the trip this year, you will see a voice channel being added to the server over in this area here, and I will add one called Wanamaker Road Trip. So that way, anybody who's driving to Wanamaker, the days leading up to it, you can jump in to that channel and just shoot the stuff with the rest of us while you're driving. Because I'll tell you what, that kept me going because I went to that show solo, and I would have been bored to tears had I not had people to talk to the whole way up there and the whole way back. The whole way
Now,
back, especially because y'all kept me awake.
now, let me put out there that Wanamaker's not the only reason to go to Tulsa, and you should check out some of the other shit like
Hugo's.
J.M. Davis. Jesus Christ.
No, Hugo's.
Hugo's, yeah.
The North Hugo's.
Hugo's, yeah, the North Hugo's is not, God, a couple miles from J.M. Davis.
That was in Claremore, right?
Right, yeah, J.M. Davis is in Claremore.
Yeah. The Northern Hugo's is the only one that has the side of bacon, which is more like side of an entire pig. I still need to do
There's,
that.
especially if you're there with the girl, there's other stuff to see that you might not find interesting, but she would probably be impressed with.
Maybe I'll bring them both. That's not a bad idea. Bring them both. Screw
What
it.
the hell's his goddamn guy that did all the writing? Will Rogers. Will Rogers Museum is pretty interesting.
Mm-hmm.
I got freaking 20 Will Rogers cups we bought while we was down there.
All right, so yes, I think I should be able to swing it, and I think it actually happens the weekend of my birthday too. So maybe I should go see if I can pick up something nice for myself. What I'd really like is to, I'm not gonna do it, but I'd like to, is I'd like to pick up a Swiss revolver, like I think it's an 1891 or something. Wouldn't mind having one of those.
Basically, the Swiss Nagant.
Basically, yeah. I like the way that the grip is arranged on it, and I like how I don't think they patinaed this color. I think they naturally came like a plum brown finish. They look really cool. Like I've always wanted one. Ammo for it's going to be a pain in the ass, but I'll figure it out.
I'm glad I wasn't down there with the guy that you're talking about explaining the long coat to his girlfriend because I'd have probably not got in. I'd got fucking thrown to jail.
It's like all of a sudden my bear spray can just sprung a leak right into his face. Oh, I'm so sorry.
Oh no, I'd have been screaming. There ain't no fucking such thing as a goddamn 45 long coat.
Ah, you guys did, and if you guys are watching don't realize this, the early watch has changed to the new watch podcast. But back when it was just the early watch, they had this discussion on the show, and I managed to find one company that marks the head stamp 45 long Colt on it, much to
Yeah,
Tony's
so they're
annoyance.
liberal.
Liberal Colt. That's what Schofield is, isn't it? Because it's shorter.
Obviously, if you can't tell that fucker don't go in a 45 ACP, you don't need to be having a gun in your hand.
Yep. I almost fell for the see an arsenal effect the other day. I almost bought a Royal Irish Constabulary revolver. And then I thought, I really don't want to try to figure out 450 Adams. No thanks. No thanks.
Just for the point of that whole show on the early watch, that round I was holding in my hand when I talked about that, it's right here in my hand right now. It's still on my desk.
I was thinking every year around this time, I ask myself, what am I going to buy this year, gun-wise? I guess let's get into that a little bit, since I've got both of you here now. For me, my goal for purchases this year was pretty small. Get my fucking Python delivered. Get a 6-inch Anaconda.
Oh, for this coming year. Never mind.
Yeah, this year. And then, right now I'm on the fence. I could buy the AKP, which is PSA's 7.6239 version of what looks like a crank, which I want. I do want one. Or I could finish building out my 10.5-inch, or sorry, my 12.5-inch AR-10, which I want to do. But it's going to be a one or the other scenario. And then I had this fantasy of building a DP-28 Russian machine gun. And that's an expensive proposition. And because that thing is on my maybe list, that kind of kills everything else that I would want to buy this year. But that's all I've got on my list. For sure,
Well,
Python
if
and
you buy the
Anaconda.
parts kit, who's to say you have to build it right away?
Right, and I think I'm going to do that. I think I am going to pick up the DPM parts kit and just sit on it. So
it's only going to go up and value.
Right, I can always flip it if I change my mind. So you're right, I probably will do that. Just not buy a Milsurp or two this year. Because last year...
one buy and...
last year, Jesus. I mean, who would have thought that buying my grenade fire Enfield, thanks to Night Strike, admittedly he found it, at the Wanamaker show, would put me on the path, because after that came the Jungle Carbine, and the regret that I didn't pick up the Italian Vetterli Vitali at the Wanamaker Gun Show. And last year, shit, I bought 14 Milsurp rifles. 12 of them are on my wall right now. One of them is in a box that I have to actually build. 2 of them I did build last year. But I don't know. Like, I keep saying I need to go focus on other things, and then I turn around and buy another Milsurp, so I still have to feed them too. For those of you who don't know, I did a Pwnery's reloading bench on the 43 Dutch Beaumont. Right now, if you want a really cool, unique, antique rifle, go grab one. Because the Dutch Beaumont, it looks like something from the 1700s in a way. In the front, it looks like a muzzleloader. And it's got this, 60-inch overall length. And it's got this bolt handle that looks like one of the pegs that sticks out of a ship's wheel. And it's got that really cool filigreed magazine. Um, right now, depending on condition, and I will admit, I think I overpaid on mine by quite a bit. But then I felt relieved when I got it appraised for almost 4 times what I paid for it. You should be able to pick up a Dutch Beaumont Vitale for anywhere between $350 to $800. If you get one for $800, it better be in the kind of condition where you don't have to do anything but oil it. Mine was pickled. I bought it out of a shop, I think in Pennsylvania or New York or somewhere up in the Northeast.
Pennsylvania, because you were saying Slim would have been pissed if he knew about it.
Oh, that was the Jungle Carbine.
Oh, that was Jungle.
Yeah, that one definitely came out of Pennsylvania because he was livid. But yeah, that one came out of the Northeast somewhere too. And it was kind of weird because the stock was in good shape, but it was covered in this mung, like almost like cosmoline. And the barrel and the bolt and the trigger guard and everything was yellow, like dark infection mucus yellow. Now you know the color. Not the smell, just the color. And for some reason, I've got this ability to look at milsurp listings and I go, that's the one. Like, there's something good in there. It's almost like you see a woman in a sundress and you look and you go, she's not wearing underwear. Like, you just know, right? So I looked at this Vitale, and at the time, the auction bidding was only at like $200, and I'm like, that's a really good rifle. Even though it was dirty and scummy looking. And I let the bidding go all the way up to $700. And I won, because I don't think anyone was dumb enough to spend that much. And they shipped it.
You overpaid.
Yeah, and they shipped it, and they came with a COA, and I got to work. If you watch This Old Gat, it's an episode, and it took me 14 hours of cleaning, but the barrel
Find out it didn't have any underwear.
Oh yeah, yeah, she was slick underneath. No, everything turned out beautiful, like the receiver, trigger guard, trigger, barrel, and half of the rear sight is supposed to be in the white. So I've got this stock that's this really dark, walnutty, maroon pigeon blood color. Unfortunately, it doesn't have any curl like in the thumbnail I did in my video. If it did, it would have been perfect. But really, really nice stock, and then it cleaned up beautifully. And then I took it and got it appraised, and they offered me $2,800 for it. Like, no, I'm going to hang on to this. Then came I need to figure out how to feed it. So, what I'm suggesting to you guys out there is, if you're looking for a really cool, interesting milsurp, consider the Dutch Beaumont Vitale. They're really, really simple machines. They're very cool looking. They're incredibly long. They're quite a bit heavy. And I've done all the legwork for you, all the hard work. I showed you how to take one apart, how to clean it, how to service it. And then in my Pwnery's reloading bench, I give you the step-by-step on how to make ammo for it. And I've got a source for the brass, which I shared. Tony actually made the lead cast bullets for it. So the bullet diameter and weight is not unobtainium. He casts these things for other calibers. They just coincidentally work perfect for the Vitale. So I go through the whole process. What shell holder you're going to need, which die from which die set you're going to need, which powder to use, because this was a black powder rifle, but the action is strong enough that I found a recipe for a smokeless powder. And it's not a weak loading. It's like 28 grains of a rifle powder. And this thing just eats it up like nobody's business. I got that recipe from Iraq Veteran, actually, because he's got one of these things and he shoots lights out with it. Like he takes game with his Vitale all the time. So all the legwork's been done.
Sounds like you're trying to run the market up.
No, I'm not selling it. Like, I love that rifle. I'm keeping it. But I want to share, I guess, the joy of my experience of owning one with other people who are on the fence with getting into milsurps. Because, let's be fair, the $50 Mosin doesn't exist anymore. So now you do have to spend a little bit of money. And if you have to spend a little bit of money, why don't you get something unique, something kind of interesting, something you can tell a story with? So
Don't you wish you were sitting on a crate of $50 Mosins today?
I've got I've got admittedly two of the best Mosins you can have now. And I got into this game late. Like I didn't get into Mosins until last year. But I've got a 1944 Tula PU sniper with the original wax paper still on the eyelet cups for the scope. I got that for $800. You can hate me all you want. Um, and then thanks to Jimmy, I got an M44 carbine. Love it. Like I'm very happy with that. I'm glad I was able to help him out, and he got to make a few bucks, and I got a pretty sweet rifle that a friend of mine reconditioned. Like he did the cleaning and the legwork for me, and it's beautiful. I love it. The only thing I'm looking for now, there are two Mosins I want. One is Scott knows, a Finnish M39.
Mhm.
He and I have been kicking ourselves for probably at least a year or two now because Classic had them for $400 and we didn't buy them, and now they're double that. So
Now, I would consider a Finnish one myself,
yeah,
just because of what they are.
and how much engineering and perfection they went into making them too.
That's what I meant.
Yeah, they're impressive machines. I love them. But yeah, if you're gonna get an M39, now is the time 2 years ago, but now is the time before it gets even more expensive. So like,
You
I'm,
know,
hmm,
a little backtrack here, but the old lady told me a couple of days ago that if I could run across an Anaconda that's near MSRP,
hmm
I could get it.
the new one, right?
Yeah. She
Yeah,
said
they're
I couldn't go over like 1,900, 2 grand.
they're out there. My local's selling them right now for 17.99.
I uh, I I can't justify it right now. I got to do this build down south.
Yeah. Well, okay, so who's to say you just don't flip something you've already got just to kind of offset it? Because you said you have a rifle that you own it, but you're probably never going to shoot it because it's kind of a shoulder kicker and you have it, but you're not attached to it. That seems like something worth flipping to just offset.
It ain't worth no money.
Oh, it was a 700,
All
right?
this stuff. No, hell
The
no.
Remington?
No, that's a 742, and that's my one assault rifle, man. I can't
Oh.
get rid of that. Semi-automatic 30-06. That's my rifle, except for that expanded 4-round magazine.
hmm I think I'm going to need a headset soon.
I've been telling you that for about 8 months.
Well, no, I mean, it literally cut off the signal and came back up. Either that or that USB port's starting to break again.
Until I get the cabin situation squared away, I'm not going to do anything firearm wise. Yeah, I've
Yeah.
said several times I already got pretty much everything I want, with the exception of the damn Anaconda, and it's not really a requirement. I mean, I've got 5 44 Magnum pistols. It's another one.
Okay, so I've tangented it a lot from what we originally started down this rabbit hole. But like you said, on your radar, not really anything because you've got other things, on your plate.
Yeah,
What about you, Scott? This year, like any, I might go after one of these type things.
Um, probably gonna try and get a M38. I've had bad luck with milsurps the last few, if you weren't aware.
Huh. Huh.
Drunkenly bought another one that was not in the best of shape, which I'm probably gonna just fix up a little bit and flip.
Can I tell the story?
No.
All right, M38's the Mosin carbine, right?
Yeah, but it's the one without the fucking bayonet on the front.
Would you
It's
consider
basically
the
the
Chinese
M40.
53?
Yeah, that's the same thing.
Okay.
I just don't want one that has the bayonet on the front because A, all the extra added weight of said bayonet,
Mm.
And they were also zeroed like the other Mosins with the bayonet.
Yeah, but you can always take it
So-
off.
No, ooh, no. If you do that, the fucking point of aim is going to shift like a son of a bitch on you.
Yeah, but you can adjust
And
the
you're going to
sight.
have to re-zero.
Yeah, that's fine.
It's a pain in the ass.
I don't know. That M44 that I got, it bit me. That bayonet went about 3/4 of an inch into my left shoulder. Oops. That's what happens when you're walking over dogs.
You know that on my list there's one that's revolving rifle copy from Moot Victory.
Mm-hmm.
But hell, I think they're $700 or so now.
Wait a
Well,
minute.
we know
There's
the one
another
gun that's
name
going
for
to be
that.
on your list.
There's another name for that. Is it the circuit judge?
Cattleman's
Yeah.
Carbine.
Cattleman's Carbine. Okay. Yeah.
But I want the cartridge one, not the black powder.
Yeah. I think it was either Uberti or Cimarron. No, sorry. It's a South American company. They used to make one.
Or-
Maybe it was Uberti. No, Chiappa.
Uberti
That's
is
what it was.
Italian.
Chiappa made one about 10 years ago. Again, I got into this game late. I regret it. They made one in 454 Casull. That's the one I would have. Because you can fire 45 Colt through it all day long if you want to, but you have the option. And I love that. Like,
I don't want this thing to shoot. I want it to hang on the wall.
sure, well, okay, so we just got to find you a derelict one, essentially.
Yeah, I would shoot it probably a couple of times, and otherwise it's just an ornament.
Wasn't there like a, you told me this before, it was like a 1860 something. It was a revolving shotgun or something like that?
Oh God, I don't know.
You saw it on Deadwood or something? You said one of the characters had it? And I looked it up and I thought, oh, that's kind of cool. I think it was a revolver cylindered black powder shotgun, like 1860 something. Pretty cool though.
I can't.
That would make a gorgeous wall hanger.
Me and the old lady both want this damn gun wall hanger thingy.
Yeah.
So that's the point behind that, because they're not really all that much fun to shoot
A lot of work.
because of, the revolving rifle part, because of the powder flash out around the cylinder makes it a little uncomfortable unless you got your hand right up underneath your other hand to hold it so it's not in front of the cylinder.
I'm looking this up just to see if it exists, but I doubt it does. Damn. Okay. If somebody out there is a gun designer, somebody make a Cattleman's Carbine, or I swear it was called the Circuit Judge.
There was something called a circuit judge. I'm familiar with that name.
Yeah, the Rossi Circuit Judge. It's a lever action actuated revolving carbine. Somebody out there make that in 460 Smith & Wesson. I'll buy it. I will buy it. Because then you have 460, 454 Casull, 45 Colt, 45 Schofield, 455 Webley, 45 Cowboy Colt. You've got options. And it's going to be weighty because it's all wood and iron or steel. So you could use that as a baby's first rifle experience. Baby either being child or baby being your woman, because you can load any round you want into it, and the weight will help mitigate the recoil and the shock against her shoulder. It'd be great. And then you can always 460 it and go to town. Anyway,
As long as it got a guard on it for the.
it does. You're talking about the cylinder gas cutting. It definitely has that. All right, so Scott, M38. Was there anything else? It's a long
There's
year.
always something else I haven't figured out.
Ah, yeah. See, that's kind of me too. Like, there's 5 blank spaces in the back of my head for, oh, I didn't think about that. Let's get that.
Let's see. I want a complete 1917.
Eddystone?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I would like to find either a Smith Wesson Victory, something along those lines.
You're talking about the Revolver, right? Not the 22 semi
Yeah.
that they got now?
The Revolver,
Hmm.
45 Colt,
Yep.
or 45 ACP Revolver.
The Raiders of the Lost Ark Revolver.
Yeah.
I love that scene.
Boom. Walk away. I want a fucking Webley.
455?
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm with you on that.
I would settle for a 38 Smith & Wesson if it was the right price.
I just can't justify 800 plus for a 455 Webley. I'm not saying they're not worth it. It's just $800 goes towards something else that I want more.
Yeah.
And that I can't stomach it right now. But if I do get one, I can scratch it off the list and it's gone forever, right? It's like, oh, I got one. There is that. Okay, so yeah, we've got a to-do list. We've got a wish list. And then there's that, was it that, you called it, it's called the Hellion, right?
Yeah, there's that bullpup.
I
that
really
everybody's
like
talking
that.
about.
I like the way it looks. I like it. I don't like its
I'm
price.
not a fan of bullpups. There's too many ergonomic sacrifices. The awkward reloads. I'll stick with a regular AR or an AK.
Yeah, because you can make it short enough.
Well, hence AR pistols and AK pistols.
Yeah. I don't know. I like them. I always wanted what was it called? A L81 or L85. The original British bullpup. That's the one
garbage.
Yeah, that's the one I originally wanted. They're mechanical garbage, but I've always loved the look of it. Like, I gotta have one. And I guess that Hellion would scratch that itch. Yeah, Springfield Hellion. Is it Springfield?
Yeah. Springfield Armory.
Oh, Zorro's saying he wants one of those or a Beretta 1301, which I think is a shotgun. I still want the Tavor TS12 from last year. Now, in terms of bullpups, that one makes sense. That one absolutely makes sense.
Used at this point.
Really?
I figured somebody bought one of those and has fired for remorse at this
And
point.
regrets it, yeah. Like, I gotta find that person. Like, if you got one and you don't want it, hit me up. Email address and link below. I might take you up on that. All right. Anyway, so yeah, we have to-do lists. You notice we haven't talked about SHOT Show. And the reason
Nobody gives a shit.
well, there's that, but the reason is everyone else in other shows, before ours already has. And I just don't want to sound like more of the same. But I guess the only part of it that I can talk about is it's more of the same. For instance, do you remember when we all used to like sneak in and watch the gun rights policy conference streams every year? And we started formulating this opinion of every year the same type of people and the same people go up there and tell the same stories to each other. It's like an echo chamber, right? And I know it's the intent and purpose is good and just and righteous and all that, but it's like I can't watch it anymore because I know what's coming already because I've seen so many of them. And the same thing can be said about up and coming for SHOT Show. The same folks
can be said for CPAC too.
Yeah, it's like the same folks are going to tell us the same thing about how they're going to get there and go early and all this other stuff. And it's like, okay, I get it. It's exciting for sure. The only new information you can tell me about SHOT Show is what's going to be there. But you and I and everyone's already discussed that too. Now, I'm sure there's going to be some late entries that nobody heard yet. And it's going to be like, oh, wow, this is here. But that's what makes it surprising.
It's all the small vendors, that
make it
aren't
interesting
on the main floor.
Yeah.
That's what makes it interesting is all the small vendors because they're the ones that are really innovating.
Yes.
None of the big companies are really innovating.
Well, like the bishops did it one year. They brought their
Yeah.
bolt actions in like 458 SOCOM and all the other stuff, and I thought, oh, that's kind of interesting. And then I realized who built their rifles, and I
Yeah.
thought, I'll just go to him.
Seeing as he's in the Discord.
Yeah, I was like, I'll just go talk to him. But no, you're right. It's the off caliber vendors, I guess is a good way to say it. Manufacturers, you're like, oh, that's really cool. But yeah, that's the only reason we didn't talk about it, just because everyone else already has. The show's right around the corner. Um, from what I understand, CES was cut short this year,
Mhm.
and I don't think anyone's mentioned if SHOT Show's going to be cut short this year, just because we already heard the list of who pulled out. Big Fish have pulled out of that show because COVID. So it's like, maybe this will be the year for the little guy there to shine, you know? And all of you that are going, we definitely appreciate you going out there and showing the rest of us, because we can't all make that trip. I've wanted to for about 4 years now. I just can't justify the trip. Like, I can't do it. I'd love to
I
go, but
I never really cared that much about SHOT Show because you can't find it.
yeah, it's more for people to set up distribution at that point.
Yeah,
But the range day's
it's
cool.
you can see the new shit. But
Yeah. It
if I
reminds
see
me of,
something I want to buy it right there.
you know what that reminds me of? When I was a kid at the George R. Brown Convention Center, they had the Nintendo Power Championships. And it's set up the same way. Giant arena, and all the latest and greatest and new stuff is on display. And you could play with it all, but you couldn't buy it there. You had to wait, you know? When's it coming out? Soon. Okay. So it's sort of the same thing, but I don't know. I think if I went to SHOT Show, it would just to be to hang out with those other people who are going to SHOT Show. It'd be more
That
fun.
was about half of what Wanamaker was that first time.
Yeah.
Gun channels people
Probably
all
what
getting
half of
together.
fucking SHOT Show is all about, anyways.
Yeah. No, that's why I like Wanamaker better, because everybody's the little guy, vendor wise. They're all the little guy, which is great. And then, like Tony was saying, they had a table set up for the gun channels people, which is cool. But now that there's no gun channels, how does that work? Like, I'm sure intermingling between the channels is happening. That's fine. It's just, is someone setting that up? Is there a booth like before? Does Pwnery finally get to eat one of those amazing smelling ribeye sandwiches that they make there? Because I should have bought one before I left, and I kicked myself the whole drive home.
To hell with that sandwich. You
I,
want to go for the bacon at Hugo's.
I was
That
about to
too.
say that.
Well, yeah, but see, that's the perfect day, isn't it? Wake up, bacon
That
at
damn
Hugo's.
ribeye anywhere.
It's like bacon at Hugo's in the morning, and then road trip ribeye steak sandwich on the way home. It's perfect. I'd be pretty happy.
I'm telling you, you're doing yourself a disservice if you don't go over and see J.M. David.
Well, if I go this year, I will do that. Absolutely. Maybe I'll even
There's
bring my
real
45
live,
70.
honest to God Gatling gun in that place, which I was trying to figure out how to steal.
You wheeled one out the last day, didn't you? Or was that Dano?
That was an eye.
That was Dano, right? Like he was
That
helping
was
somebody
like-
move one?
That was That was like 75% size.
Yeah.
It wasn't
Oh,
a
it was
full-
scaled down?
Yeah. I don't know that it was actually scaled down. It was just smaller.
Huh.
It was cool. Don't get me wrong. But the one in J.M. Davis, it's the real deal.
It's on the carriage.
Oh yeah.
All right, so we have burned through an hour and 19 minutes so far, and we haven't even gotten to the stories of the day. Holy shit. Let's go ahead and start doing that before we bore everyone to death. Although, concurrent viewers, that's quite good today. Thank you all. First story I've got for you today is about the Waukesha Christmas parade massacre, attacker, idiot,
Terrorist
guy?
attack?
terrorist attack, domestic terrorist, shitlord, that guy? Yeah. 2 or 3 days ago, they added 71 new charges on him, bringing the total to 77. And you might be wondering, whoa, 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 he's already got charges. How can you tack on more? Well, it's because the district attorney and the investigating police had finally concluded interviewing all of the people involved as victims and whatnot. So here's the quick and dirty facts. They filed dozens of new charges against the suspect. He now faces 77, 61 additional charges of recklessly endangering safety. So basically what this is 61 and ones, which is good because what you can tell is the intent of the prosecution here. This guy is a repeat douchebag. He's a repeat offender, right? Right before he drove through the crowd, he had the ex-girlfriend in the vehicle. He was punching her in the face while driving. What a model citizen, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then I guess he got mad and he was like, "Oh, it's gonna be like that, huh? Well, watch this." You can only imagine what was going on inside that vehicle, words-wise, right? So yeah, he's got 6 counts of homicide, 61 counts of endangering the public. And the reason that I'm pretty happy with this is because of the fact that they realize that this guy's never going to be rehabilitated. Ever. And they don't have the death penalty up there. So what they're going to do is guarantee that he's never, ever getting out again. And I'm kind of glad because if you remember, he was charged and then he was let go with $1,000 bail. It's like, what? After the public outcry and the national media attention, they finally raised it to $5 million, obviously. But the preliminary hearing was yesterday, and all the charges were read out, and the judge had ruled that he will stand trial there. So you're going to have people sitting there screaming, "Oh, he's not going to get a fair trial." Shut the fuck up. Seriously. Everything you need to know about that
Jesus
trial was
Christ,
caught on
Jimmy.
camera. Everyone knows you got to pull over to punch the old lady. Come on, man. Evil. That's what ball gags were invented for. Anyway, any thoughts on this?
Take him out behind the police station and string him up.
See, they don't
Good
have
say,
the death
money.
penalty.
Hopefully somebody kills the motherfucker before we have to spend all that money on a trial.
You know, funny enough, when they mentioned this guy and how this is all going down for weeks, the only vision in my head that I kept seeing as I heard these people talk about this was Jack Ruby shooting Lee Harvey Oswald while being transported. That's the only thing I could visualize the entire time this story was playing out. I'm like, that's how this guy's going to end. Somebody's
Well,
going
you
to do
are a
that to him.
Texan. I mean,
Somebody's going to do
that
that
was
to him.
a Texas thing.
Yeah.
Hey, Jimmy.
We call it frontier justice. Then again, it could also be called CIA cover-up.
Frontier Justice in the fucking basement parking lot of a jail.
Still Texas. Texas goes underground.
That's, yeah, there you go. I'll give you that.
Yeah. Texas doesn't stop at ground level. It goes all the way up into space too, apparently. So we can just put this guy in a giant chicken gun and launch him into low orbit. Or better yet, oh, I got it! I'm gonna solve the border crisis and this guy's execution in one shot. We're gonna test the I'm not gonna say it. I'll just say we're gonna test the MSP and put him in a Suburban that's remote controlled and just have him run over an anti-tank mine and see if we can send him into low orbit. Problem solved. All right.
Well, you probably could get him to run down a bunch of fucking illegal immigrants before he blows up.
We'll put out like mannequins so he thinks they are, and then send him out into an anti-tank minefield. That'll be great. For those of you who don't know what MSP is, hashtag MSP, if you're a regular on Never Enough Ammo's Discord or chat, just ask him one time about MSP. SP stands for Space Program. That's all I'm saying. Anyway, story number 2. We're going to get through these relatively quickly, I can tell already. I think it's this one. Yes. Okay, let me scroll up a bit. And bang.
While you're killing time, I'll just tell Jimmy to say hey to his old lady and give her a kiss for him.
So, Commiefornia. We're going to pick on you twice today. Only twice. Bill filed to harass the firearm industry with lawsuits. There's a new assembly bill that's being proposed in California that basically declares gun manufacturers and ammunition manufacturers as public nuisances, which literally opens up Pandora's box for wrongful lawsuits. It declares that the firearm industry shall have created or maintained a public nuisance if their failure to follow federal, state, or local law caused injury or death, or if the gun industry member engaged in unfair business practices. I know it's cliche at this point to say this, but it still stands true, and until you can debunk it, we're going to continue to use this. You don't sue Ford every time someone gets killed by a drunk driver in one. It's never... The weapon is not the implement used. The weapon is the person wielding it. So, to be able to get away with even proposing this idea is, frankly, preposterous.
It's Gavin Newsom.
Yes. But I don't think he's the one that put together this bill, though. No,
but
Phil Ting of District 19. He's the one that proposed this. So it's going to allow civil lawsuits against the firearms industry. But the conditions are what's really strange. It's like, say there was a shooting at the Santa Monica Pier, right? Say the gun used was... I don't want to slander any gun manufacturer, so I'm just going to make up one. Dipshit Arms, okay? So what they're saying is the people, families of the victims, whatnot, maybe not even victims, maybe just people who were there, they can sue Dipshit Arms for being a public nuisance. Look, they sell the tool, right? If you cut your finger off buying a circular saw at Sears, you don't sue Sears. You're an idiot. You cut your finger off. You're a moron. You weren't wielding the tool properly or safely or in its intended use, or maybe you were and you were just careless, okay?
I don't know, man. Tool violence is a problem.
Sean, that's the rabid left, though. They blame everything other than the actual perpetrator.
Well, of
Who
course.
the fuck left you in here?
He let himself in.
I came in the back door.
Actually, I want to mention something about you in a bit. I'll get to it. Don't worry, it's nothing bad.
Okay.
But yeah, it's like you're right, Tony. There is a tool problem. There's an epidemic of tools in England right now, namely knives and hammers, because they can't use guns, right? There was a... Let me see if I could pull this up really quick. I doubt I can, but I'll try anyway. I got this really interesting email that my friend Sewell, who is a guy in his early 80s now, but can a pro-gun American justify their nation's gun laws to a Brit who believes that a gunless society is safer? Let me take a stab at it. So bear with me, children. It's story time. You are, I take it, familiar with a glance at these guys. These people are called the Queen's Guard. So those are those guys in the red suits with the bear hats, or bearskin hats. They're elements of the British military services charged personally with protecting the sovereign and crown residences, though as some commenters have stated, there are other layers including detachments of London MPD, which I think is Metropolitan Police Department, and MI5 that you don't see during the changing of the guard at Buckingham Palace. They're not just for show despite preconceptions by tourists, and they are a more visible and traditional version of the United States Secret Service. Neither, you might notice, are the rifles that they carry are for show. They're not older pieces chosen for aesthetics like Garand rifles used by the U.S. military drill teams, including the president's own. These are fully functional and, when actually guarding and not just on a parade drill, fully loaded SA-80 rifles. The primary difference from the average British soldier's issued rifle being the nearly ubiquitous bayonet attached to it. The Queen's Guard can, and has, used these weapons against people who encroach on the fences at Buckingham Palace. They act ceremoniously, and they take a lot of shit for it from passers-by, but they will not screw around. So, why in a nation with very few civilian-owned guns, no civilian handguns, and where carry of just about anything you could use as a weapon is banned, does the Queen's Guard even use guns? There are more of them than there are likely to be any trouble-making tourists. Certainly a bayonet on a staff would definitely get the points across, no pun intended, and be just as practical for 99.9% of what the Guard uses the gun for. The reason is simple. Guns and people with guns are the best defense against anyone seeking to do the Queen harm, no matter what the opposition are armed with, including other guns. You might be familiar with these guys too. There's a picture. These are the London Metro police officers. Firearms in their hands are H&K MP5 submachine guns. A couple of different variations. Now wait a minute. The bobbies in the UK don't carry guns. That's been a thing for decades, long before the UK banned handguns, civilian handgun ownership in 1997. What the heck are these guys doing with MP5s?
Police run away from people with knives.
Yeah. Well, then what the hell are these guys doing with MP5s? Not just sidearms, but submachine guns. Well,
Since the terrorist attacks.
you don't see U.S. patrol officers slinging these across their chest, not unless it's seriously hitting the fan. If U.S. police officers on foot patrol were walking down the street with hands on a weapon like this, that would cause a panic. The answer, again, is equally simple. These guns are the best weapon available against a substantial recent increase in violence, crime, and terror attacks across the UK. Simply put, it is hitting the fan in the UK. The British police understand that, as everyone else does, that the best counter to anyone intent on killing is to engage that person outside the range of their own weapon with your own weapon capable of efficiently and effectively incapacitating that person. The best weapon for that situation, no surprise, is a gun. In fairness, as mentioned in comments, for a total police force throughout England and Wales is about 123,000. There are only about 5,000 authorized firearms officers, or AFOs, and only a subset of those spend their day patrolling in this kind of fashion. So this is not as common as we're making it. However, the point stands that U.S. Foot Patrol officers simply do not carry these kinds of guns in plain view in the same situation British AFOs do, such as out on major market thoroughfares or in airports or sporting venues. This version is everything is under control, is a very European phenomenon that would have most U.S. residents believing quite the opposite. So, Brits generally realize that guns need to exist, and that someone needs to use them, because bad guys, with or without guns, exist in an otherwise civilized society. The UK has done pretty much everything it can to keep as many of its police and its citizens unarmed as it can, and in the process, they have made the UK one of the most surveilled and least private countries in the world. And they still have to have guns. So on its face, you have no more experience of a gun-less country than I do here in the United States, where that's estimated to be at least one gun for every man, woman, and child living here. You have a less gun society, not a gun-less society. The answer to your country's uptick in violent crime has been to increase the presence of guns in public. The theory that reducing guns reduces crime is facially invalid by the actions of your own country. What the UK has done isn't to ban guns or create a gunless society. It has simply created a society in which the government has a monopoly on the legal use of force. The government has absolute control over who can legally own, possess, or carry or use a firearm. And it uses that power to minimize the number of people who can own firearms, especially handguns, who do not also have a government job requiring them to be armed. What you end up with, as a result of this monopoly on force, is a society in which that society's elite are protected by firearms, and the rest of you have to catch as catch can until someone with a gun shows up. U.S. gun owners see this hypocrisy all the time, when gun control proponents in Congress and elsewhere appear on live TV with Secret Service and private bodyguards half the time. Nobody's kidding anybody else about the need to have some guns. The issue is who gets those guns. Gun control proponents want only the government's agents to have guns, because the elites in society who fund gun control efforts out there of their own pockets can also legitimately expect attention from those agents regarding their personal safety, and can hire additional security and watch all the hurdles to lawful gun ownership be waved away to those security guards whom they are guarding. Here's the clincher. In the U.S., it is well settled law that if the police forces of the government have no duty to protect any individual person from criminal violence, unless they specifically and explicitly take on that responsibility. Their duty is to the public in the abstract, to preserve public order by investigating crime and apprehending suspects. Good on them, but that doesn't unkill you, or unrape you, or unstab you, or unbeat you, or unrob you. If you want to prevent these things that are dependent on the police, if you want to prevent these things and are dependent on the police to prevent them for you, you're wrong. Possibly dead wrong. Many of the court cases have been heard on that subject, including at the U.S. Supreme Court, trying to find some situation, however egregious, that strains credibility as to the incompetence or the apathy of the police involved, to find a line at which the law enforcement agencies of the United States must be held legally accountable for their failure to prevent or even stop a violent crime. None of these legal challenges have succeeded, even though the stories behind many of the cases are horrifying. 3 women being beaten and raped repeatedly for over 14 hours by 2 home invaders despite 2 different calls to the police, Warren versus D.C. A boy beaten into mental disability by his abusive father despite regular child services visits, which found plenty of evidence that the father was beating the child, DeShaney versus Winnebago County. A woman repeatedly calling 911 to relay information on the whereabouts of her estranged husband, against whom there was an active restraining order preventing any contact with her or her kids, but nevertheless had kidnapped them, and police did nothing until he walked into the police station brandishing the gun he had just used to kill 2 of the children, Castle Rock versus Gonzalez. A man beaten and stabbed several times in a fight with a wanted murderer on a subway train while the police watched from the locked operator's cab, not intervening until the assailant had already been subdued, and testifying in sworn depositions that they did not leave the cab because they were afraid they'd be injured. Luzito versus New York City. All of these suits ultimately failed either in trial court or on appeal because the precedent is clear. Local police forces and their officers cannot be held liable for any specific failure to protect one person or a few from criminal harm. Other lower court cases building on these more notable ones have further hollowed out the nature of any specific duty to help, to the extent that a police officer can literally watch a crime in progress, then turn around and walk away, and all he has to say is, "I couldn't intervene without further escalating the situation," and he will face 0 civil or criminal liability. So,
Be right back.
all right. So the British firearms laws, and the Australian ones, and several others, pointed to as models of gun control, would put the country's only weapons in the hands of people who, at least in the U.S., have absolutely no legal obligation to use them to protect members of the public unless they explicitly and proactively extend that protection to a specific individual. Now, what do you get when you ban handguns and firearm carry, only allowing certain types of traditional hunting and sporting firearms? 1/4 the total international homicide rate. Pretty much your only win. On the other end of that, this is what you actually get. Twice the number of assaults. 2.8% of the UK reporting being an assault victim versus only 1.2% in the United States. Twice the number of rapes. 0.9% reporting victimization in the UK versus 0.4% in the US. 22% higher property crime rate. 35% higher car theft rate. 3 times higher total crime rate. 109.96 incidents per thousand versus only 41.29 per thousand here in the United States. This is all with a comparable police force between the two countries, about 2 officers per 1,000 citizens, and a comparable crime reporting rate of just over 50% of the total estimated crimes committed that are reported to the police. Source for that is the United Kingdom versus the United States, Crime Facts and Statistics. This is, of course, ignoring the relative rates of firearms-related crime. It's grade school logic that reducing the number of guns accessible to civilians reduces firearm-involved related crime. Ban cars and we'll have fewer car accidents. Bravo! Suffice to say, if there are a few gun-related crimes in the UK, but not zero, so gun control is not even totally effective on what it's supposed to do. What most anti-gun arguments commonly ignore is the effect on total violent crime, and on total crime including property crime. Statistics say that total crime rates are unaffected by at best by increased gun control, and most often they increase, as in the UK. The logic is obvious. When your chances of being confronted by a gun-toting homeowner are high, if you were to break into a window and climb into a house, you tend not to do that. If they're very low, you're more likely to do that. If the woman you're tailing through the parking lot, determined to find out firsthand whether she shaves her bikini line, suddenly rounds on you, draws a gun, guess what? You're not going to find out this little tidbit of information today, possibly ever. If, however, you know that she is very unlikely to even be carrying pepper spray, because it's illegal to have those, to say nothing of a handgun, then assuming you're bigger and stronger and faster than her, you'll probably get a very good look below the waist and more.
You know, I have known a number of women who would have showed your dying corpse that bikini on after she shot you.
Yeah. This is the reason that in the United States, 67% of all gun owners own a handgun. 71% of those have only one gun own a handgun. And 60% of all respondents, when asked why do you own a gun, answered with some variant of personal protection. On top of this, surveys of gun owners and non-gun owners alike show a 65% majority in favor of concealed carry, and a poll of sworn law enforcement officers shows a staggering 91% in favor, saying that they think the practice actually increases public safety. Only 25% of the country favors an outright handgun ban. There's a majority support for other measures: universal background checks, gun registration, ownership licenses contingent on education courses and practical qualifications. But very few in the U.S. are talking about banning all guns, because very few in the U.S. look at the measures taken by police to curb crime without guns in London and want the same measure to be taken here. Those that do usually either haven't gotten a good look at what goes on in their country, or they're just wealthy individuals who will be winning on the winning side of change, able to surround themselves with armed guards while the rest of us do our best to do without them. So, yeah. The difference between being a public nuisance and knowing better, you can't even let an anti use the argument of, well, it works in the UK, because it doesn't. It doesn't work in Australia either. It doesn't work in New Zealand. It doesn't work anywhere. It didn't work in Sweden. Sweden used to be an incredibly homogeneous society of Swedish people. Now it is a refugee-invaded hellhole.
Well, with Australia is they've got their own problems now. They're taking away any guns people have left now and throwing them in, camps because they're not getting vaccinated.
China is doing that right now. actually. I read a story 3 days ago that China has what they're calling COVID quarantine camps. CQC, something like that, right? Which is close quarters combat. But, yeah, they're rounding up people by the thousands and they're putting them in camps in China right now, leading up to the Winter Olympics in Beijing. How come nobody's talking about
have
that?
to replace the workforce because we've banned all the imports from the areas with the Uyghurs.
Well, how come nobody's talking about it, though?
Doesn't further anybody's agenda.
How come nobody's talking about the rampant protests and violence that are springing up all over Europe right now because of refugee crises? You notice that they're not talking about that on the news? Not even on global news? You used to be able to get, strangely enough, global news perspectives, and I know this is going to sound weird, Al Jazeera, because they're in Doha, and everyone there is British, speaking in perfect English. And they don't even tell you the stories about what's going on in Europe right now. Anyway, let's move on, because we've only gotten 2 stories through. I did not think it was going to go this far. 3 more to go. All right, so here we go. The way I captioned this was, Moot Victory for legally devastated and laughed out of law prosecutor Thomas Binger. Remember him? From the Rittenhouse trial, as Dominic Black, Rittenhouse's friend, pleads no contest to 2 milquetoast charges, resulting in only a $2,000 fine. This guy was so desperate for a victory that he dropped everything for a plea deal just to get Dominic Black on something. So, story reads, Rittenhouse's friend, who brought him an assault-style rifle when he was only 17, has agreed to plead no contest to contributing to the delinquency of a minor, a non-criminal citation, and to avoid convictions on the 2 felonies he would have been facing. He was charged in November with 2 counts of delivering a dangerous weapon to a minor, resulting in death. Technically, he didn't. Let's split this apart while we go through the story. Technically, he didn't. He bought the gun. He kept it in a locked safe at his own personal residence with the intent on eventually selling it to Rittenhouse when he became of age, which means he didn't deliver a dangerous weapon. Kyle Rittenhouse came to the, quote, dangerous weapon. 2 counts related to Joseph Rosenbaum and Anthony Huber, the protesters Rittenhouse fatally shot the August 25th. So that's just like some background. Black was 18 when he purchased the Smith & Wesson M&P 15 rifle for Rittenhouse at a hardware store in Rusk County in May of that year. They're implying straw purchase. This is in his name still, though. This is in his possession. This was in his safe at his residence. No straw purchase.
For how many months before Rittenhouse got the gun?
Can't remember. Oh, in
bunch.
May. In May. So June, July, August. So 3 months later, it was used. So at 17, Rittenhouse was too young to legally purchase the weapon. Well, guess what? He didn't. Dominic bought the weapon. So in August, Rittenhouse used it to kill 2 people and wound a 3rd during protests in Kenosha. No. In August, he used his rifle to defend his life from a mob of attackers, which unfortunately ended up in the death of 2 people. That's the difference. In November, a jury found him not guilty based on his claim of self-defense, because even Ray Charles and Stevie Wonder can see that it was self-defense, and Ray Charles is dead. Black was the first prosecution witness at Rittenhouse's trial, but the status of his own charges were up in the air after Judge Bruce Schroeder agreed to throw out one of the charges against Rittenhouse, that he unlawfully possessed the firearm as a minor, because he didn't. The defense convinced Schroeder that an exception in the law allows 17-year-olds to possess rifles or shotguns, or at least left the law too vague to be enforceable. It still didn't matter. He didn't own it. Black's attorney, Anthony Cotton, has made the same argument for dismissing Black's case. Schroeder is also the judge in Black's case, which is set for a hearing Monday. On Friday, District Attorney Thomas Binger filed a proposed plea agreement. it suggested that Black would plead no contest to a pair of citations and pay a $2,000 fine, and that all the felony counts would be dismissed. The proposed deal was first reported by Kenosha County I. Schroeder could reject the deal, or still just dismiss the original felony counts based on his ruling about the minors with firearms law in the Rittenhouse case. Reached Saturday, Cotton said he's hopeful Schroeder will accept the negotiated agreement, noting that Black has already testified under oath as to all the factual bases. So, here's the thing: the prosecutor has already been prison pouched nearly to death in the Rittenhouse case. He is just a crippled, stumbling, gaping rear backside shell of a human being. Categorically destroyed. Bumbling idiot, exactly. And he still has to deal with this case with Dominic Black. And he can't lose because it's sort of like professional combat sports in boxing. If you're a big name and you lose once, you get a rematch and you try to build yourself back up. If you lose as devastating in the second fight as you do in the first, almost every promoter drops you and you're a bum, because in combat sports there's only room for winners. There's no excuse for losers. This guy would be destroyed categorically a second time. So before allowing himself to take that beating and being thrown out of, I guess, the Minnesota bar, he said, look, take the plea. It's almost like that scene in Band of Brothers where David Schwimmer looks up and says, look, Dick, you don't go out on the weekends. You spend all weekend on the base anyway. Just take the punishment. Because he knows that he doesn't have a case. And, for Dick Winters, he was like, I'll sign this and I'll see you in court. And in this case, Dominic Black said that he would go ahead and take this if he wanted to, because there's no felonies, right? But the judge could stop and go, hey, no, you're not taking this because I'm dismissing all of this because this whole case is bullshit. And that would also make the prosecutor look like a retard. Y'all's thoughts?
I don't know, man. That would be a hard one from Black's perspective because,
Well, if it's the same judge as the Rittenhouse case,
It is.
I doubt he will throw it out because he had all those chances to dismiss with prejudice, and he didn't.
I think he had to win the one case without looking overly biased to be able to dismiss this one. You see what I'm saying?
But there were plenty of chances to dismiss the Rittenhouse case,
Yeah.
and he should have because of the fact that the fat Jake and the Fat Man really fucked up the prosecution. They did things illegal.
that judge did dismiss the part of the case that tied to this guy.
Yes, the firearms ownership, possession. But
Yeah.
see, that's the thing. If he looks like he had a bias on the murder trials, then the court of public opinion would make a pariah out of him. So instead,
Well-
he let the defense present a convincing enough case to where he didn't have to do that. And then he ended up smelling like roses. And now for this just possessions case, which is far less incriminating with far less bad side effects, he can dismiss this one. He can be like, look, you couldn't get him on murder because you literally helped them win. And now he's like, and you can't get them on possession either because this gun is still registered in Dominic Black's name. It's still his gun. Kyle Rittenhouse never owned the gun. It was never in his possession at his residence. It was in Dominic's residence. So it's like the case is even weaker than the murder trial. He could dismiss this one and just walk away from it easily. At least that's what I think.
Well, for the whole self-defense 2A situation, I hope the fuck he does.
Yeah, I do too. I really do. Because you can't prove straw purchase, because there wasn't one. Kyle Rittenhouse never owned the gun, ever. It was never, he never took it home. It was in Dominic's residence, in a safe, except the day, August 25th. The gun was waiting in the room next to the safe, loaded and ready to go, because they had already had a plan to be neighborhood watch, armed, whatever you want to call it. But that's still, he's not possessing it. He doesn't own it. Well, okay, he's possessing it because he's using it, but he doesn't legally own it. And then after he was, the gun was seized, again, they didn't take it from Rittenhouse, did they? No. They took it from Black's residence and then admitted it as evidence. So it is never Kyle's gun in the eyes of the law. This is going to disappear. I mean, you don't hear about Rittenhouse anymore anyway. They've already buried it because the media looked like fools covering it. And they had to write so many retractions at, page 98, bottom right corner, because that's where they put them. They don't want to admit that they screwed up. Anyway, there's that. Let's move on.
Next.
Next. All right. It's another one of those ones I got to read to you guys. My throat's dry. The way I caption this is Professor Obvious, little known introvert, and obscured in the family photo brother of Captain Obvious, releases study results from the University of Commiefornia. Davis. I almost went there, actually. No, I was going to go to UC Berkeley. Never mind. About what happens to a disarmed populace. The results are, well, obvious.
Predictable.
Very obvious.
I went over this
Subjugation.
the other day.
So I'm going to try to paraphrase this one so I don't bore you to death. California is a violent place, despite having some of the most stringent gun laws in the country. You don't say. A new study by University of California Davis Firearm Violence Research Center is damning. It reveals that millions of adults in the Golden State have at least had one exposure to what the anti-gun researchers call experiences of violence, or EVs. Not electric vehicles, experiences of violence, right? So they're making up names and labels now. Research on violence exposure emphasizes discrete acute events such as direct and witnessed victimization, which means you don't even have to be the victim. You could have just seen it and you're counted in this statistic. Little is known about the broad ranges of experiences of violence, EVs, in daily life. The study assesses that the prevalence and patterns of distribution of 6 EVs in an adult general population. The study states the researchers defined their EVs as the occurrence of gunshots and shootings in their neighborhoods. Not that they saw it, not that they heard it, just that it happened in the area. Encounters with sidewalk memorials where violent deaths occurred. I got a problem with this. Because do you remember that joke story about the cockroach that was found dead in the college stairwell, and then they built a memorial that grew into a plinth that was so big that it choked the stairwell and they had to take it all down about a goddamn cockroach? So they're considering that experience of violence because somebody died there. Direct personal knowledge of individuals who had purposefully shot themselves. Okay. HeyJackass.com has a section called Shot in the Junk-O-Meter. That would count as an experience of violence if your gun negligently discharged into your nutsack. Okay? I'm just saying. That counts. Direct personal knowledge of individuals perceived to be at the risk of violence to another person. Anybody who watches WWE Monday Night Raw. Direct personal knowledge.
Listen to Jimmy.
Yeah. Direct personal knowledge of individuals perceived to be at the risk of violence to themselves. So suicidal people and what's the word I'm looking for? It's not narcissists. People who hurt themselves.
Sadomasochist.
Masochists. Yeah.
It's
They're in that
Perhaps that-
statistic.
I wonder if that covers the people who strangle themselves while masturbating.
Yes, David
Carradine.
Carradine was exposed to violence. jerking off while standing in a chair with a noose around his neck. I love using that as an example. I'm glad you said that. Researchers surveyed 5,018 California residents. 2,870 responded. Sounds a lot like when we asked them for calls of action for voting, except they actually had more than half the people show up for this one. More than 52% were female. The mean age, the average, of the respondents was 47. The results show that nearly two-thirds of the respondents reported at least one EV. More than 11% reported 3 or more EVs. More than 30% of African Americans reported EVs involving people who had been shot by others. Respondents over 60 years old reported that most EVs involving people who had shot themselves. Respondents aged 18 to 29 reported knew the most people at risk to violence themselves. So they knew these people. By extrapolating the data, the researchers were able to estimate that more than 3 million California residents had 3 EVs per year. More than 5 million Californians know someone who is intentionally shot. More than 3 million Californians know 2 or more people who are at risk of getting shot. Well, if you talk shit, you're probably going to get capped. Snitches get stitches.
Especially in California.
So what they did was they took 5,000 people, did this thing. Based on the percentages of the answers they got, they scaled it up to the population, 39 million. And this is the number they came up with. That's how it works. Experiences of violence in daily life are widespread in the general adult population. Many occur in clear patterns that are unlike those seen for violent victimization, the researchers concluded. As with victimization, it is plausible that these experiences have durable and cumulative adverse consequences. You don't say. So, California gun control laws requires a permit known as Firearms Safety Certificate to purchase handguns, rifles, and shotguns. Sound familiar, Tony? The state requires registration of all firearms and requires that any gun brought into the state be reported to the California Department of Justice. It bans assault weapons, in quotes, and standard capacity magazines. Technically, California is considered a may-issue state for concealed carry permits, but in actuality, many jurisdictions have become no issue unless the applicant is wealthy or a celebrity. Well, no shit. The state requires background checks for both private firearm sales and ammunition purchases. It restricts home-built firearms by requiring anyone who wants to make a firearm in their home apply to the California DOJ for a serial number, polymer 80s. Takeaways. This study clearly shows that California's vaunted gun controls are obviously not working. The state is infringing upon the Second Amendment rights of its 39 million residents for no reason other than perhaps tradition. California has always trampled on its citizens' civil rights. However, data shows Californians are actually waking up. In 2021, the state suffered a net population loss of 0.71%. And another 0.71% is projected for 2022. So almost 1% of the total population left last year, and it's going to happen again this year because Tesla moved to Austin. That's a joke.
Well, and they're going to go somewhere else and fuck it up.
Right. While conducted by anti-gun researchers and touted by gun control groups, this study actually buttresses what pro-gun rights community has been saying for decades. A disarmed populace is a vulnerable populace, which will always become a victimized populace. Captain Obvious and his brother Professor Obvious have come to the rescue of 2A.
Yeah, but here's the one thing you guys are forgetting about. With all the liberals spreading out, they're diluting their voting power.
Wrong. Here's the thing. You get population centers of liberals in California moving to other states. And what they're doing is they're moving into purple cities across the country and tipping the balance, turning it blue, Scott. They're not moving into a vacuum. They're moving into a place that they could flip. There are government local leaders in states that are blue that are literally campaigning on, well, if you have to leave, maybe you should go over to these places to help get us more control of those states, and then we can do our jobs more effectively in this state so you don't have reason to leave. That's what's actually happening. Once upon a time, Austin was incredibly red. And then I graduated high school. And every generation that followed me has turned it a dangerous shade of indigo because the Capitol is still controlled by a Republican. But the mayor is a Democrat. The city council is heavily Democrat. The population is heavily Democrat because it's full
You're
of
also in the
stupid,
fourth
young,
quadrant.
influential, easily influenced children or young adults who fall for the we'll give you free college, drink the Kool-Aid. We'll forgive your student loans, drink the Kool-Aid. Guns are bad, okay? Drink the Kool-Aid. And that's not happening just in Austin. That's happening all over the country. Which kind of leads me to my last story, actually. Because we were told countless times that Oregon is a blue state only because of two cities, and all the rest of it are under siege because they're red counties, and the two blue cities are what's ruining it, right? We've been told
Illinois
this.
is that way, except for one damn city.
Yeah, well, we're told this repeatedly about the state of Oregon, and maybe even Washington too.
No, you gotta
So
look at the sources on that.
yeah, so the reason I brought that up was actually because this study came out of Oregon, strangely enough, Oregon State University, and it reads, "Weed can stop the Rona." Did you know that?
I thought it said prevent.
Compounds in marijuana can actually block the Rona, or as
Yep.
or as roll call calls it, which I think is freaking hilarious, cocoa, the cocoa, from entering
I-
cells in your body.
I call it Panda Express.
Ooh, I like that one too. I just call it Kung Flu. So, yeah, some cannabis compounds can prevent the virus that causes COVID-19 from entering human cells. And then they have to pull this in at the end. But smoking marijuana offers no protection against the illness, according to a study in Oregon State University. Wink! How else are you supposed to get the compounds in your body? Don't say CBD and all that shit. Just go to the source. Go straight to the source and spark up. The researchers found that a pair of hemp compounds, cannabigerolic acid, CBGA, and cannabidiolic acid, CBDA, try saying that really fast, bind to the SARS-CoV-2 spike protein, blocking a vital step into the deadly bug's path into infecting people. So basically what it is it attaches itself to the COVID cells. The COVID cells can't be absorbed into parts of your body. That's actually pretty clever. It's like these two compounds put a Jimmy hat on your cells, essentially. And it's not sheepskin, so it's not porous. It's not going to leak through or leak out, whatever. Long story. So anyway, yeah, these are not controlled substances like THC. They have good safety profile on humans. Look, the question is, can I get those compounds by rolling a J? Because if I can, then the fact of the matter is people don't take medicine because it tastes good. People take medicine because it cures what ails them. But in all
It makes
honesty,
them feel better.
exactly. But in all honesty, if there is a pleasant side effect to the medicine you're taking, then you'll take it. You won't be resistant to it. So if you can have these compounds in your body by blowing a J, then fucking do it. Because what's the side effects? Cotton mouth, a bit of hunger, and maybe higher weight gain than coronavirus calories, whatever. That whole joke, right?
Bit of hunger.
Well,
How
I don't
much?
know.
How long's it been since you smoked weed?
It's been over 10 years. But, I mean, if I have a few really strong beers and I get a really good buzz going, I eat. I eat quite a bit. So it's kind of the same effect to me, actually. Anyway, it had to come out of Oregon. Weed blocks corona. Let's just make it 50 state legal. Fuck it. I've been saying that for over a decade, probably longer now. The fact of the matter is if you want to make money hand over fist, look at the tax revenue gains that Colorado did in their first year of legalizing. Now make that a 50 state program and think how much extra money. Now this is take this for what it's worth. States are going to make money hand over fist with the tax revenue, right? If they do that, maybe they can start lowering the fines, or maybe they can start shutting down the toll booths and toll roads, because now they're making money off of weed revenue, right? Just go that route. I made this joke about if you tax it like tobacco federally, and you regulate it like alcohol federally, like drunk driving and whatnot, and you collect all the tax revenue from weed, 50 states, you could eliminate the national debt in 10 years or less. Guaranteed. Guaranteed. Like, it does not take a mathematician to figure that out. You take the monetary tax revenue gains from just the state of Colorado, and you multiply that times 50 states. Many states who have much larger populations than Colorado, which means their revenue would be much larger than Colorado. You would pay off the national debt in 10 years. Then you wouldn't be so upset at the fact that 20 years ago, a politician uttering the word billion would be smacked down in, what the fuck are you thinking? And now they say trillion like as easy as they breathe. So you got to find one way to justify their wasteful spending. You better make the money up in other ways, because we're not paying the taxes on it. Fuck you. Especially since you're giving voting rights to illegals in New York City, and you're just leaving the screen door wide open in my border.
Before they start throwing out all the problems people out about being stoned, that didn't fucking happen here. I've never heard of a car accident or anything that was caused by marijuana usage. I'm sure they have.
I think I agree. Now, I have been so stoned that I was in a lucid state, to be honest. And I've probably told this story before, where I was playing Call of Duty with a couple of friends at a LAN party, and I got so stoned that I couldn't even see the bottom of the monitor. I just saw the game and my feet. And I was just playing like I was on autopilot, and I had like 130 kills and only like 4 deaths. And all my friends were just like looking at me like, how the fuck did you do that? And I'm like, do what? Yeah, I have been stoned to that point. If somebody was in that state and they were behind the wheel, that could be dangerous. But if you don't make something illegal, then you sort of take away some of the naughty desire to do that thing, right? If you give people liberty, they will regulate themselves. Meaning they will moderate themselves. You know, if like alcohol is legal. I can go to the liquor store right now and buy as much alcohol as I want. I could be the next Shoe Nice, and I could pound down a 1 liter bottle of Johnny Walker on camera in 30 seconds and probably pass out and maybe die of alcohol poisoning. That's the liberty and the choice, my freedom to be able to do that is accessible to me. I regulate myself, right? I'm like, no, there's a consequence to this. I'll buy it. I'll buy this bottle of Old Granddad, and I'll just sip on 4 fingers in a glass, maybe once or twice with a couple of ice cubes in it. And I'll stop because, like, the buzz is good here. This is where I step off, right? So, by making weed legal in 50 states, it's not like you're going to run around with a bunch of potheads. You're not going to have a nation of people laying around stoned out of their minds not getting anything done. People will regulate themselves. It's when you tell somebody you can't do this, the first thing they want to do is that. No, you can't date that girl just because she's got a nice rag. No, her brother will kill you. Now he really wants her. Stuff like that, just dumb stuff like that. You don't have to be a math expert to figure out when interest rates rise, the interest on a $30 trillion debt will be larger than the GDP. Yes. And as HVS very correctly pointed out, if you didn't know, the Federal Reserve is planning on 4 rate hikes this year. They're saying they're doing that to curb inflation. Right.
You mean that transitory inflation they were talking about?
Yeah, and you know the thing I don't understand? Inflation usually happens when you have an abundance of wealth and not a lot of inventory. And people are competing for the inventory, so prices go up for two reasons. One, because the seller is going to maximize the profit because someone's willing to pay the increased price. And two, sometimes they raise the price to curb the purchases down so they don't have to increase production, which is sort of shooting themselves in the foot. Ammo manufacturers and primer makers, I'm looking right at you. But yeah, they're saying now that they have to raise interest rates to curb inflation. I'm sorry, but for the last 60 years, you have not kept up the federal minimum wage or Social Security benefits to stay on par with the increase in cost of living allowances. If you had done that properly in the last 60 years, we wouldn't be in this problem right now today. Fact of the matter is the 10-year challenge that everyone jokingly calls about, call it the 25-year challenge, and look at the minimum wage 25 years ago as it is today. It's barely moved up. Now look at the cost of living allowances 25 years ago to today. It's insane. I mean, we talked about this, I think, 2 weeks ago. When I graduated high school, I worked for Chevrolet. I could have bought a 1-ton dually crew cab diesel, new, for like 35 grand. Same truck today, $100,000. Like, without hesitation, $100,000 with all the options on it. Or Cadillac Escalade, first generation, $50,000. New one, fully loaded, $150,000. Really? Now, there's some argument to be made there. Some of you know I drive a T-Bird. I also drive a Chrysler 300. I want a truck. I haven't had one in a while. I kind of want one. I want one. I want it to be diesel. I want it to be four-wheel drive. I've narrowed my choice down to three different vehicles. One, half-ton Ram Pasta diesel, 3-liter, four-wheel drive, half-ton. Or, if the money allows, 3/4-ton Cummins, four-wheel drive, diesel. But I've opened up to Ford F-250s with the 6.7 Power Stroke because they're good engines. The ones that came before, the 6 liters and the 6.4s, not so much, but the 6.7's pretty good. And it even says it right on the side, B20 viable, which means biodiesel, which I used to make because I used to have a Mercedes. Anyway, point is, I looked at trucks for the Ram from like 2017 and onward, and it's got the same interior as my Chrysler 300 with the touchscreen navigation, all the bells and whistles. Okay, go back to 2012, real rudimentary system. You know, the shifter, the four-wheel drive system is different, the shifter's different, the dash is different, doesn't have the nav, it doesn't have the touchscreen, doesn't have all that. So they justify the increase in price because of that technology. Okay, maybe a little bit, but not 3 times its original value from only 20 years ago. No way. No sense. And they further justify their inflated prices with like cars, houses, boats, whatever, is, oh, don't worry about the cost. We offer 10-year financing now. Back in the day, 60-month financing was pushing the edge of, do I really want to sign my life up that far? Now it's commonplace. When I got my T-Bird, they were like, we can finance it. I'm like, cool, can we only do it for 3 years? I really don't want to stretch this out. No, sorry. Best we can do is 4. Like, well, if we can only do 4, then we might as well just go ahead and do 5. No, we'll do 4. Well, then give me 3. No, we'll do 4. Like, they just wouldn't negotiate. I was like, fuck it, whatever. But, you know, if I go today, say, give me that 6th generation Toyota 4Runner. Oh, yeah, we'll finance it for 8 years. Why? Because it's $64,000 fully loaded. No thanks.
Well, here's hoping you get trucked pretty soon.
I'd figure by November-ish.
HBS said weed won't save the world. You know, if you look at Pritzker's campaign ad, weed has bounced budgeted along with another $1 trillion worth of tax increases.
No, I know what he's saying because what he followed up with makes sense. He goes, it won't save the world, but it sounds better than any other plan he heard so far.
I was just making a joke about Illinois.
Yeah, but I mean, you're right. Like, the revenue helps. So you might as well just go ahead and take it. Like the populace is offering you money. Take it. You know? Like if you're in government and you have a willing population willing to pay taxes on something as long as you say it's not going to throw you in jail, you're shooting yourself in the foot. Like there is no moral police for weed anymore. The
There,
drug problem is fentanyl.
the thing is there's decades of proof out there that weed is less harmful than alcohol.
There is no medical, clinical proof. There is no lethal dose of marijuana. There isn't. They did a calculation based off of toxicology, because I did this in med school. You would have to smoke 1 pound of marijuana a minute for 15 minutes straight. Constant
Now,
inhaling. You can't do
for
that.
for those of you who've not ever been experienced with marijuana, a pound is a freaking lot.
It's a shoebox. It's the size of a shoebox packed tightly. Think about it like that. You would have to smoke that shoebox packed tightly in a minute. Constantly inhaling, no exhaling, for 15 minutes straight. 15 bricks in
I mean,
15 minutes, never breathing
think
out.
about it. Back when I was actually doing it, an ounce was considered a fair amount.
Ounce is like a Ziploc baggie, like the quart Ziploc baggie. Don't ask me why I know all this.
Full of people stoned.
People right now, somebody's going to sit there and go, how does he know size and weight like that? I was a kid once. That's all I'm going to say. I don't do that anymore. But anyway, and it wasn't me selling it. It was me buying it. So that's how I got it. Nowadays, I won't disclose too much, but if I really wanted it, I have a friend who basically is a farmer. Like he's very, very meticulous about how he grows weed. And he does it very discreetly because it, legalities. But he turned it into a hobby that calms him down. He's an IT guy. His job is high stress. So it's like his version of bonsai plants. So not only does he get to grow really great weed, but he's very, very meticulous about the process. He's very careful. He gets very hurt when it doesn't work out and they die. Like it hurts his feelings because he tried really hard to make it perfect, But anyway, if I really needed it that bad, he does it. He packs them into mason jars. And like one time I went and visited him, and I was like, "Hey, I'm gonna grab a drink." He's like, "Yep, go ahead. Cups are in the pantry." I'm like, "All right." He didn't tell me which one. I opened the pantry door, and it was just wall to wall, front to back of mason jars full of weed. And I'm like, "I don't think I can drink any of this." And he goes, "No, they're on the other side." And there was the cups. And then he was like, "By the way, if you ever want one of those, just grab one and take it with you." I'm like, "Thanks." I never took him up on it, but
Well, I'm in a free-thinking state here.
Yeah.
I got a grow facility about a mile from my house, man.
yeah, it's funny.
But
It's
just double
legal
in
as long as the
size.
government gets to grow it, right?
They just put up another building out there to double their size, so must be
Nice.
doing good.
HVS was saying that he bought a pound bag of Italian pasta a few months ago for $12. Now it's $50 on Amazon. I'll do you one better. Sam's Club used to carry Stefano's Italian meatballs. They were 3 inches in diameter. I think they were pork. They were listed as gluten-free. And what I can tell you is they were amazing. Like it changed the way I made spaghetti and meatballs. It was so good. You would go and buy a pack. There were 16 meatballs, 4x4 grid. You got the pack for like $8. They're $79 on Amazon now. Sam's doesn't carry it anymore. That's inflation. $8 to $79. That hurts a lot because I really liked those meatballs. Anyway,
Well, I can tell you a more common folk example is our local Dollar General sells pounds of frozen hamburgers.
yep. Yeah, meat
Uh,
prices have gone through the roof.
It was for the longest time $3 a pound,
Yep.
which is high for here.
Yep.
It's $4.50 now.
So, after the gun show last week, uh, my barber is in between my house and Pasadena. It's far. I have to drive an hour to go to my barber.
Pasadena's in California. I guess it is far.
Well, no, there's Pasadena in Texas too. There's Pasadenas everywhere. Anyway, so on the way back from the gun show, I asked George, I'm like, do you mind making a stop on the way back? Because I really don't want to have to backtrack after you drop me off. He's like, sure, where you want to go? So I told him the directions, and I told him we were going to my barber. So I got a haircut. And when we left, he was hungry. And he's like, you want to grab a bite to eat? And I'm like, sure, where do you want to go? Now, his sister works for this place called the Houston Barbecue Company. And he suggested that, and I was for it. I was like, yep, brisket and ribs sound great. But he looks next door to my barber's place, and there was a Philly cheesesteak place that just went up. It was called Lefty's Feet Cheesesteaks or something like that. And he goes, you want to just go here? And I thought about it. I'm like, yeah, I haven't had a good cheesesteak in a long time because the place that I used to get them went out of business like 20 years ago. And I haven't found one as good since. I've been looking. So we went inside, we ordered cheesesteak. And you know, me in my mind, I'm thinking, $10. You know, combo, cheesesteak, fries, and a drink. No, $19. And I'm like, are you fucking kidding? Like, when they tell you that, they say it so matter-of-factly when they tell you what your total is, as if it's normal. So you have to respond normal. So I just hand them my card. I'm like, okay, here you go. And in my head, I'm just like, I want to reach across the counter and choke the life out of you.
I went to Applebee's with two of the daughters, their husbands, and kids, and we ordered. You know, I had a hamburger. They had just whatever, nothing extravagant.
Mm.
The old lady says, "We'll pay for it," and the waitress hands me the bill. $170 fucking dollars. I about had a stroke.
How many people?
9. But
That's.
half of them were kids.
They threw in a gratuity, didn't they?
No, I dropped $30 on top of that.
Wow.
I shit you not. I'm like, I ain't fucking doing this ever again. Fucking kids can starve. Where you got tempted.
Oops.
We'll go to McDonald's. Probably only cost me $80 at McDonald's.
I have to.
That, without a doubt, is the most I've ever spent on a meal in my life.
I can't say that. I will tell you a sticker shock story, though, which is pretty funny. The sushi bar that I used to go to after work every Friday, my friend Cole and I, literally, we had put the entire wait staff through college. Not even kidding. Because every time he and I would go, we became regulars to the point that they gave us our own table. Because it was close to the TV that we watched basketball. We would stack sake bottles like bowling pins. Not 10 pins. My 10, his 10. And beer bottles everywhere. Having a single person sushi bar bill of $125 was commonplace. After tip. No, sorry, before tip. $150, $160 every Friday. One time, I took my girlfriend to dinner there. And they had a sommelier for sake, which I didn't even know existed. But what he would do is he would come and introduce different types of rare imported sake that he brought. Some warm, some iced. Tell you the story about it, bring you a bottle and a carafe and a couple of cups, and you would drink it. So she and I was eating, and we had all these fancy bottles of sake brought to me. And we only spent like 2 hours there. And then the bill came. It's $450. And I sat there, and I was like... She looked at me, and I just whipped out my card and handed it to the guy like it was no big deal. She didn't see the ticket. And inside, I'm whimpering like a whipped dog. I'm just like, this is gonna hurt so much. I've just joined Team Ramen Noodle for the rest of the month. And I just wanted to kill that guy. And then I gave him a $50 tip on top of it. So I had a $500 dinner. I was just like, never again.
Yeah,
Never
before
again.
the Applebee's bill, the biggest thing I ever had was at Columbia, South Carolina, at a Greek restaurant called Black Bull, and that was all the kids, but no grandkids.
Mm.
And that was $100. And that hurt at the time, but that was shit 15 years ago. I got to admit that Black Bull was really, really pretty good.
I don't know. I'm trying to think of what I want to do today. I think I want to do the brisket and rib thing now. Damn. Anyway, we have hit 2.5 hours, and before I close out for the day, I thought what I would do is ask. So, what are you guys doing for the rest of the weekend?
Hauling the old lady back and forth to work and bitching because of the weather.
She's still sick.
Yeah.
She's going to work anyway.
Yeah, the other people are out with COVID.
What a trooper. Scott?
Hopefully get to go to the gun range and try out my new toy.
Bite me, asshole.
Devoid of temperature?
Yeah, I'm gonna risk it.
Talking about the
It's
T91,
cold
right?
there.
Yeah, the pistol.
Yeah, he has no temperature. It's like 0.
I have a lack of temperature.
Yeah. I, on the other
Oh, dear.
hand, I wish I had a camera I could show you this. It's 40 degrees, which, yeah, I know it's not that cold, but the winds are blowing at 30. Not a cloud in the sky. It's gorgeous looking outside. So we were talking about this yesterday off air, but maybe I will go take that Dutch Beaumont Battalion outside. Maybe. I mean, it's so nice out there. I'd be stupid not to. But then again, the weekends are the only time my folks get time to leave and not have to worry about the dogs. So maybe I should let them go do whatever they have to do. I mean, they do keep my house from
Fucking
burning down.
dogs just survive for a couple hours while you go to the range.
Maybe. I mean, they survive all week when I go to work, right? Oh, I didn't tell you. Well, I have to check later. So if you follow my social media or whatnot, you'll know. But yesterday, we have 1 of 8 eyes open. So yesterday was day 11. Usually puppy dogs' eyes and ears open around day like 10 to 13. So hopefully we got more open eyeballs. Last litter, I had 7 of 8 eyes open. One eye on one puppy would not open, and I couldn't figure out why. And I thought maybe there's something wrong with his eye. So I called my vet, and she told me, she goes, "Oh, that happens sometimes. Could just be it's welded shut from, tear ducts and it dried up or whatever." I'm like, "So what do I
You
do?"
good?
Yeah. So she said, "Just take a cotton ball, dip it in warm water, and just rub his face back and forth until the eye starts prying itself open." She's like, "Don't take your fingers and just rip it open." I was like, man, she knew exactly what I was thinking. So she was like, "Take a warm cotton ball soaked in warm water and just keep rubbing it across the face, pulling on the upper eyelid while you're doing it. And eventually, it should pop open." So we'll see. If you've never seen a puppy dog's open eyes on the first day, they're blue like in Dune. And then they darken out because I guess the cones and the rods start doing its thing and taking in light. But when they're first born, it's blue. They have blue eyes. It's cool.
As long as they're blue like that, they're blind.
Well, that's possible, yeah. Oh, wait, I know what you're saying. Yeah, because it's not fully in focus. You're right. But I did hit the color lottery. The female of my litter, I named her. All my puppies are named after world conquerors. So this one being no exception. 2 out of the 3 males have already been sold, so I didn't name them. And then 1, I don't know if I have a sale of him yet, but if I don't, I'm going to name him George after Patton. And then the female, because she was born 3 days after the passing of Betty White, and her being the second to last Highlander on Earth, I named this one Betty. And Betty is Betty White because I hit the color lottery. I think she's party colored because she has white socks on her back feet and she has a giant white spot on her chest from her chin to between her front legs, which makes that dog incredibly valuable, somewhere to the tune of between $2,000 to $5,000. So I'm hoping it's not a fluke. I hope it sticks. And the fact that I have a party-colored, breedable female, I'm going to start making inquiries because that's going to be worth a lot of money. I don't know if I want to sell her outright or if I want to keep her for breeding fees. I'm not sure. Because I've already got 2 females. I'll have a third. I'll have 7
that's an
dogs.
anaconda and an automag.
I know. That's what I was thinking too. I was like, what can I spend that money on?
Yeah, you could get an automag for that kind of money.
Yeah.
No, honestly, I might pull a U, actually. If I sell her, I might just pay off a credit card. Just in one shot. Boom, done, right?
Yeah, but if you use her for breeding fees,
Then I can auto-mag it every 6 months.
Just because she's got the white don't mean she'll throw white pups.
No, but being a party-colored dog is like hitting the genetic lottery. For schnauzers, a party-colored schnauzer is usually white, brown, and liver with black and white spots too. So that's rare for schnauzer. For a Yorkie, apparently, it is white spots on a Yorkie. So I thought, we'll see. We'll see. I don't know. My breeding pair, they've produced some very normal dogs, and then the second litter, all the dogs that I adopted out retained their black hair. All mine didn't, but all the ones that went out did. I have the Yao Ming Yorkie from the first litter, which is huge. He's 16 pounds right now. For a Yorkie, that's big. And now I've got the party-colored one. So, like, I've got a good genetic breeding stock because they're giving me all these different variations.
Think about these dogs I got. Both of these dogs are black and tan. Cattleman. Their mom's black and tan. Their dad was a red merle.
Mm-hmm.
And the most pups that she dropped out of each litter were blue merle.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it's just the lottery of genetics.
It is. And my last 2 schnauzers, they were both double recessive, which makes them white, which made them very pretty to look at. But being double recessive, I got every genetic defect imaginable, and they were expensive. Like, both of them, $20,000 at least in their lifetime. It was expensive. And they only lived 2/3 the standard lifespan too, so I got 10 out of one and 9 out of the other, which sucked.
Yeah, Catahoulas are dogs capable of double recessive too, and usually breeders that have those kill them.
Mm-hmm.
There's so many problems with them. I don't know that I could have done it. I'm not going to have pups anyway.
Well, Mike, what are you doing for the rest of your weekend?
Absolutely nothing.
Rest.
Yep.
I don't know what I'm going to do. I got to watch the
Christ,
dogs.
his name is Mike.
Hey, you didn't know that?
Yeah,
No,
you didn't know
I
my
didn't
name
know
was Mike?
How long?
I'm
They were
pretty sure
named by Night Strike.
I'm pretty sure, Tony, I told you my name was Mike in Tulsa.
I don't fucking listen to you.
That's your fucking problem.
Oh, that's what I wanted to mention. Jimmy put up a video the other day.
Oh God.
No, it's not bad. Of old videos of lobbies, I think. Maybe it was an old
Yeah.
early watch.
It's
Okay.
no word to watch.
And you, both of you, were on chat. And I gotta say, you did sound very different back then. Very.
Me?
Tony doesn't. Tony sounds the same all the time. Yeah, you sounded very different back then.
Probably different
Yeah, that
microphones.
was before I taught him the F word.
No, well, no, it's not that.
No, it's not that.
You were a lot more measured back then. Not in
What
a
do you
bad
mean
way.
Measure. What do you mean?
your volume was more consistent, I guess. Like you didn't let yourself get as animated all the time, which wasn't a bad thing. But I swear it sounded like I was listening to two different people then and now.
That was just
Honestly, people like the animation, so I kept on doing
Oh yeah, no, without a doubt.
it happened too. It was just that it didn't happen on that particular one.
Yeah, it was refreshing. It was different. I was like, oh yeah, I forgot.
I listened to that whole
Sometimes
thing
he can
again.
be incredibly serious without being incredibly animated, and it's actually very. It was a very good flow of information that came out of you. I guess that's a good way to put it.
You were there at the beginning. At the beginning, what are you complaining about?
Oh, the best part was Tony just screaming, "Don't say shall not be infringed, damn it!" Like he was driving that back then too.
That's been my running thing.
I
You
know.
know, it shall not be infringed. So
Why the fuck I said it?
I don't really have a running thing when it comes to these chats, but if you ever watch my penny arcades, I do have a running thing, and I don't know
No,
where I get it from.
yours was the one on Matt's, which you mentioned. You won't say the full name.
I know, but
it
I
was
didn't use that all the
#MSP.
time. It was
No,
just-
you did.
at
For,
that
like,
time it was fun.
Yeah.
No, but like
My thing is simple. There ain't no fucking 45 long cold.
I got this thing where when I'm doing game videos, if something goes my way or doesn't quite go my way, I visualize Ellis saying this with his hat and his beard and everything, going.
Yes, you visualize your mortal enemy.
I visualize him going, "That's fine. It's fine. It's fine. It's all fine." So like when I'm playing my games and I'm doing them on stream, I always say that. I'm like, "Oh shit, we died. That's fine." And I can just picture Ellis every time I say that. I don't know why.
Yeah,
He was in here earlier.
I know.
Sean, because you're McCoy. That's why.
I know.
That he's
Sorry.
a hat. That's why.
It's all right. Now,
Why I said mortal enemy.
now he's slugging it out in Ohio or something, right?
Yeah, he's in Ohio now.
Yeah.
Like,
I can't
Well,
Freezing
imagine.
his ass off in Ohio, you mean?
Yeah.
That's what I'm saying. I
Why
can't
would you
imagine
move from
going
South
to
Carolina where
south
it barely
fucking
snows
north.
to Ohio?
Apparently that's where the women folk are. I don't know.
I guess.
Well,
They may be more willing to cuddle when it's cold, I guess.
well, opportunity-wise, now he can go shooting with Rob and Frankie.
I guess.
Ohio's a pretty big state.
Right, but depending on where he is. Because
Yeah.
Rob and Frankie have basically an outdoor range that's just right behind the shop that Rob works at. So that's kind of a thing.
Well, this snowstorm we got here last night, probably just about there right now,
Hmm.
if not there already.
Yeah, I read about that. It's going to be nasty.
Yeah.
It's actually
So-
not a horrible day. I mean, it's 25 degrees, but it's windy as hell, and that's
Yeah, here
blowing
too.
snow.
Windy but no clouds. It's kind of nice. I don't know. I washed the car yesterday, so like it's all I don't have to worry about it. Okay, so what am I going to do the rest of the weekend? I have already done it. I for some reason at the beginning of this year, I have not been able to motivate myself to do penny arcade videos. I have got a mountain of games to go through. Night Strike sent me 2 of them actually, and we will get to those. I promise you, we will get to those. But I found a game that I had in my inventory for over a month, and I decided to try it Thursday. I think it was Thursday. Yeah, it was Thursday. And I recorded it because I liked it so much. It was called Fire Girl. And basically you're the daughter of a dead firefighter, which sounds kind of morbid, but the mayor is an idiot the mayor is an idiot and the fire chief is incompetent. And you have to work for both of them. And I think one of the really cool aspects of the game was the fire is possessed by demons. So when you're putting out the fire, like they take demonic shapes before they burn out. Sometimes they attack you too. And there was this one scene where like you're fighting a forest fire and the fire is so big to symbolize how out of control it is. There's a blue whale that's made out of fire swimming above you, dropping fire on you. Like it's it's got a lot of symbolism in it, and it's really well graphicked out, and like the bloom effects and the shadows and everything are fantastic. And I'm not really
Sounds a
big
little.
on. Hmm?
I said, sounds a little too woke for my taste.
No, 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 no. Like the game itself is actually very entertaining, very challenging too. There's no difficulty settings. It's just hard all the time. Um, but like it's visually stunning because I've noticed that there's a lot of games that use the Unreal Engine and I don't like them. This one uses it and it's wonderful. But I did the first 30 on it. I think I recorded it Thursday, but it didn't go out until Friday because it lapsed over midnight. And then later today, the second episode comes out, and then tomorrow morning, the third episode, which is I only did a 3-part series for this, comes out, and I did it differently than how I've done them before. So I did 1, 2, and 3. 3, I hacked the game, and I doubled the video length, so you could just see how much you could see further into the game than I could have showed you unless I played it out for like 10 hours. So
Now,
I did.
You know what I'm gonna say next, right?
What?
When are we gonna do the chat?
I know. I said I would get to that. I haven't done. I'm not doing Kicking It Old School for the rest of the month. So somewhere in between now and February, we'll do it for sure. Um, but yeah, that's what I got going. I did all the editing and everything. It's all ready to go. So they'll do that. I'm gonna try to go through my trove of other stuff right now and see if I can find anything else I can do to record today. Um, I'm thinking, for some reason, Terminator Resistance hit my inbox the other day. And I know that game's been out for a while, but there was a major update. I don't know if I want to record that or not. It's pretty good, like first person shooter Fallout style. Pretty good. Gun selection is pretty cool. Maybe I'll do a short one on that one. I don't know. I also got Icarus, which. Okay, so I bought Night Strike Outlaws of the Old West because we wanted to play something together, and that was sort of Fallout like in the frontier. You build
Yeah.
things and you kill bandits, and if you play PvP, you play other players, right?
But it hasn't been updated in like years.
It's very slow in updating. You're right. I noticed that too. So I played it single player.
I sent you a different one that was just exactly like it. It's just
It's
there's
keeping up
more
with
elements
updates.
to it. And
Okay, yeah.
they are keeping up with updates.
I got that one installed, so I'll probably give it a look.
It's called Heat.
Yeah, I've got it.
Yeah.
So hopefully that's okay. I noticed that uses the Unreal Engine too, the Outlaws one, and I got that one in single player built up really well. But that game, like you said, no updates, and it's very limited in scope. So it's like I don't think that one's going to survive, which is unfortunate because the weapon selection was awesome. Like it has Lamat revolvers. It's got different types of shotguns. You can have a blunderbuss. You can have a knock gun that's got 9 barrels. So I thought that was cool. But what's really funny is I got Icarus at the same time. As soon as I jumped in Icarus, I realized it was the exact same game as Outlaws of the Old West, except it's in the future in space. Everything is the same. And I thought, why does this work and not the other one?
By the way, Sean, guess what I also have? I got it when it was on sale too. Icarus.
Oh. What do you think of it so far?
I like it. It's just it's a pain in the ass to level up. The fact that if you're doing single player, you have to level up. I did my own outpost, so friends can join and whatnot.
Yeah.
And the level up is just so
agonizing,
monotonous.
Yeah. I mean, on the plus side, you gain experience for everything. Like if you chop down something, experience. If you mine something, experience. You get experience for everything. It's so monotonous, like you said. And then my dumbass went straight to the Arctic map. That didn't, no bueno. I was like, no. But did you notice that the interface and the way it sort of played was just like Outlaws of the Old West? Because it's the same engine.
Yeah. Well, I had problems, running out of oxygen.
Yeah, me too. Every damn time.
I didn't know what to do. It turns out you have to pick up these rocks or mine these rocks called oxide in order to have oxygen. And I'm like, what the hell? There's deer.
Is that what they're for?
There should be oxygen if there's deer.
Yeah, exactly.
But no, you can't take your helmet off.
Okay, I'm with you. Because I got the oxide and I'm like, what the hell am I supposed to do with this? But yeah, and what's funny is I watched about 30 hours of play with the Thenon. And, like, I guess I should have found his first videos because he didn't explain any of it. I'm just like,
Yeah.
whatever. So there's that. I don't know. I'll figure out something. What I do need to do, though, honestly, is I need to play this. Because we've gone damn near 3 hours, which I didn't think was even possible this week. So anyway, I want to thank my panelists for being here. I want to thank all you for watching because we had a lot more viewers than before. From what I understand, there is no Rick's Life as I see it this week because he's still got flu Rona, which is unfortunate.
He's got the Panda Express.
But see, the other really annoying thing is he always acts like he hasn't seen us in forever. When the fact of the matter is he knows where to find us anytime. And if you want to find us, email me at the link below in the description and I'll send you an invite. You can join the show, you can join the server, you can be part of the lobbies. Anyway, thank you all for watching. We will see you somewhere else or here next week. Either way. Later.
Good day, everybody.
Later.
Later.